Lenny, are the mics on?
Everybody ready to get started? We'll go ahead and get started with, who's up next?
We've got Russ, buildings and grounds.
Yeah, Russ with building and grounds.
Thank you, Mayor. Really not much change in building and grounds except an increase in the municipal association premium that I don't know anything about. I'll let Ms. Rhonda handle that one. And we actually had a decrease in the disaster recovery cost. So that's the only changes in building and grounds this year.
You learn from Jesse.
All right, any questions from Russ on building and grounds? Aaron? Russ has already given his report. Do you have any questions for me? I know you can't have any questions because you didn't hear a damn word he said.
I got you. I resemble that comment.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Cornett, the only question I'd have is based on your budget request and budget recommendation, do you have any concerns with that
No, that was,
$350,000?
the only biggest deal was the insurance. And I was just tracking that throughout the year, but the finance department has a big, better handle. on it. That was a just.
Anything else? Okay, thanks, Russ. On the stormwater.
First off, I wanted to just say it's been a pleasure to work here for the last 2.5 years. Most of y'all know I came from the city of Charleston before coming down here, and it's been a nice change to come over to the town of Somerville from the city of Charleston down there. It's been a pleasure working with everybody that's here and the other department heads and stuff. I think we've done a lot of work well together the last couple of years to try to make some things happen around town. I did want to correct the record. It was said in the beginning that some stormwater funds will be transferred possibly to the general fund to help account for like a shortfall in the revenue. But it's like a 75-25 relationship, I think, to stand on the backs of my guys that we assist other departments around town. And it's a combination that we got probably bigger equipment, better equipment, people that are more specialized in certain types of labor. So, but yeah, I just want to put that out there for my guys that make me look good to do the work out there in the stormwater department. We asked for an increase in the salaries also, much like what Amy and Mark talked about, to achieve that $15 minimum for our entry-level employees. The reason mine was up to 111 was because we also put in there for a new employee that would be what we call a jetback operator. We'll see later that in our capital request, we have requested for a jetback truck to take the place of the small trailer mounted unit that we have now. And the purpose of that is just to try to do some additional work around town to benefit us and the residents of the town of Somerville. During the preliminary discussions, we talked about probably not necessarily needing that position, but being able to utilize somebody that we already have to operate that vehicle instead. Taking that position out, that increase would go from the 111 to approximately $73,000. And so that's bumping the entry level positions up to 15 and then taking our other employees up $1.25 an hour. I was also told that because of the shortfalls of other departments around the town, that it's be hard to accommodate that change for town-wide for all the departments. But in my department's defense, we're not doing the same work as the other departments around town. And not to take away from the guys in the street department and the guys and the ladies in the Parks and Rec department, but stormwater work's different. Even cleaning ditches is different than cutting grass at a park or on the side of the road somewhere. I've literally had people halfway through an interview be like, I think I applied for a job at the street department and just kind of get up and walk out, you know? When you start getting into what type of work we're doing, working in the ditch or installing pipe or something like that. I spoke with a counterpart over at Sanders Brothers this morning, and they're paying $17 to $19 an hour for a general laborer on the stormwater crew to do the exact same work that we're doing out there. You know, it's specialized labor. Installing the pipe in the ground is specialized labor. It has to be done right. Sanders Brothers puts pipe in the ground all day, and then they never have to touch it again. You know, the pipe we put in the ground, we have to maintain that pipe for as long as it's down there. So, you know, we're taking extra steps to make sure that that pipe's installed properly, because we don't want to have to go back down there and dig that pipe back up and work on it. You know, after the warranty period, those guys are out of there, those contractors. So, you know, like I said, my guys, I mean, we're doing different type of work. So, you know, if we could take that into consideration for those salary increases, I mean, I think the guys have earned it over there. I'm also a big fan of the incentivized raises too. At the city of Charleston, we had a preliminary, we call it evaluation from the day you started working. And then 6 months later, you go back and you look at, you know, this is what we expected of you to do, and you see whether you met those goals or not. And then after a year, same thing. So, you know, and if you met those goals or exceeded those goals, then there was a reward for it. And if you didn't, then like Mr. Brown said earlier, now you know, hey, this is what I need to work on to, because I want to get a raise next year, you know. So if you want to get that raise, you know what you need to do to be able to get there. So I'm a big fan of that too, especially moving forward in the future. So, so I just want to put that out there. The increase that was recommended from what was proposed would be like $46,035 to increase the guys' salaries up that $1.25. And to start our guys at $15 an hour. You know, whether the other departments get there or not is not my concern. I'm concerned about the stormwater department, not to be greedy or anything like that, but you know, we got our own revenue. We're doing different type of work. So I think all that needs to be taken into consideration moving forward. The other costs as far as operating, the pipe, all the material, the concrete, everything is extremely expensive right now. I've been talking with our vendors because every year we do an annual pipe purchase. We cut a PO number for $25,000, and nobody's even willing to put a bid on it because they can't bid on it in June and have any idea what the price is going to be in July. So the price of 18-inch pipe for a 20-foot piece has gone up almost $600 since last year. Just, you know, individual piece of pipe. So we'll just have to kind of play that by ear. I don't know how we'll do the PO process this summer. We may just have to do a bid and it'd be contingent on what the price might be in December compared to July. So we'll just play it by ear, I guess. But that's the justification behind those increased costs, I'm sorry, down there. And I guess that's basically it. If anybody's got a question.
Any questions for Ryan?
So you're requesting some wage increases and this jetback truck?
Yes, sir.
You
That's
need to
correct.
hire a jetback operator.
I don't think we necessarily have to have the jetback operator. If we get the truck and we see next year that it's taken away from completing other projects, or, you know, it's taken away from the other teams that's doing the work around town, that maybe we can revisit that. But I think if we get the truck, we can use somebody in-house currently to operate the truck in the beginning, at least, you know, unless we see a need for that down the road somewhere.
I should probably know this, but what's the CPW administrative cost?
That's actually different now. CPW used to collect stormwater revenue on the water bill that went out, and now it's collected on the Dorchester County property tax.
Okay,
So it's still a cost that's associated. It goes through, I guess, Dorchester County now instead of CPW. But they charge us a fee to collect our revenue, and then I guess to write a check.
Muscle.
Right.
More money in that budget.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
So you're saying that may be double dip?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
I like the way that sounds.
That's like, that almost meets your 111,301, huh?
Go ahead and move. Any other questions?
I think, yeah, next on the agenda is capital. Yes, sir.
Okay, Lisa passed out this capital expenditures sheet. Earlier, has everybody got one? Have one this hot. So I'm turning it over to Lisa.
Yeah, did you want me to go over this one or? did you? Well, I'll explain it and then they can go through their individual requests. So just to give you all an idea of what you're looking at here, these are all of the capital expenditures that your department heads have requested. You'll notice that the majority of these are the funding sources to be determined. Unless we had another funding source other than general fund, it does not have, it's not funded right now. So one of the options that, of course, we were looking at was American Rescue Plan funds. So, but we, rather than use American Rescue Plan funds to fund these capital expenditures, the messages that we kept getting over and over from the department heads is our priority is our people. Our priority is our pay. So that's why we had to revisit this. But obviously, I wanted the department heads to have an opportunity to go over these with you and to talk about their needs. So I guess if we want to go in order of the capital, we can start with the fire department.
None of these are funded.
None of them are funded, except for the ones that you'll see, if it says impact fees beside it, those are funded. If it's got CDBG beside it, those are funded, or HAT, those are funded. Anything that says to be determined is not funded. Yes, sir.
So the ones that's, the majority of things to be determined, that's just a wish list, right?
Yeah.
Do it if you can get your money, right?
I'll ask the department heads to address whether it's a wish or.
It's a
need.
request that
Yeah.
we have not found a funding source for.
Yeah, if you don't have the funding, it's something you want to do, but you just don't have the money.
That's correct.
Okay, Richard?
Yeah, so the rescue truck purchase we're looking at, this is just, it's an addition to our fleet. Basically, the primary purpose behind having this truck is to enhance our ability to respond to technical rescue incidents. The town's grown quite a bit. We're seeing more of these type calls with that growth. With people come accidents, and accidents become a need for us to be available and equipped to respond to those. Similar to the email I shared with you guys last week, the vehicle accident we had last week where a car jumped the ditch and was left hanging on the side of the ditch. We had to get in there quick and shore up the bottom of the car to get people out safely. So this truck will be available to respond to something as simple as a car versus a building. We got to get in there quick to shore up the structure so we can safely remove the persons, but our people can work safely in the structure and remove the people from the building. So that's the primary purpose of it. We have some of this equipment now. We need more of it, of course. So the cost does include equipment to finish out that cache of equipment that we need to respond to these type of incidents. And it puts the truck basically at the ready.
Does it need, do we need personnel?
Eventually,
If-
yes.
If you buy the truck.
Yes, sir. Eventually, yes. What our plan is now is to kind of cross swap the floor with personnel that are assigned to our ladder trucks. Those are people right now that are primarily trained in these type of incidents. So right now, a person on the crew would drive this truck, if it was needed, to the call to handle the incident. We proposed it this year. We were on a year that we actually don't have to buy an engine this year. So it was the timing was good for this.
This year and next year, we have 2 free years that we don't have to buy a replacement engine in our fleet. If we go into year 3, now we're gonna be competing for funds with another engine that needs to be replaced. It's starting to age out. So that's where we were with this. It is as far as our rolling capital request, this was between this and admin vehicles that we need to replace that are aging or were the 2 main ones, primary ones. Other questions about that equipment? Admin vehicles are the same boat. It's more of, there was an additional vehicle we were gonna add to the fleet for a position we requested that wasn't funded for training. And then replacing a 2013 Tahoe and a 2014 F-250 were the other 2. So we requested 3. Once again, these vehicles are just getting older on the road. And coming on down to the other capital equipment. These are all portable radios. We have to buy X amount of radios per year to keep them within a serviceable condition. It's 10 radios a year for us. That comes to $60,000. So if we don't fund 10 this year, next year we're coming back to you for 20. Just to kind of throw that out there, because we get behind on our replacements, and the further we get behind on them, now the radios that we depend on, these guys and gals wear those radios when they go into burning buildings. And that's our primary lifelink to that person to get updates on how they're doing when they go inside the burning building, and progress or lack of progress they're making with those searches and fire extinguishments. So extinguishing fire. So naturally, we want to keep those in good working order. SCBA's, our air packs, are the same boat. If you guys don't find a way to fund we don't get the 6 SCBA's, the air packs funded this year. Next year we're coming back to you with 12 requests. It's just once again to keep the equipment refreshed and serviceable. Air packs, I don't know if I need to explain the importance of those for our people to have on their back when they go into a burning building, but it's I like air personally. I know they do too. So.
How old are those?
Sir?
How old are those air packs?
Right now we have 60, I believe 60 air packs in service. So 6 a year takes us up to 10 years old. So we have some in the fleet. They're in the inventory that are getting up there.
Much needed.
Yes, sir.
Everything you asked for so far.
Yeah, we try to keep the air packs, so every 3 years they update the requirements of the packs. We try not to let them get below 3 updates behind, and that's 9 years.
How often do you have to hire staff?
We test them every year. We flow test the packs every year. Yes, sir. And that's an OSHA requirement that we do. I told you guys about that at the council meeting last week. Public safety. Other upgrades were our training site. There's a one-time capital. So as I said earlier, we trained 30 firefighters, 30 plus firefighters in the last year that are working for us now. We have more to train in the head. This is just some ways that we can make improvements to the burn room to keep those realistic. We do a lot of burning out there, live burns that we do. And of course that does damage to the Connex boxes we're burning in. So we have to replace those occasionally. So this just allows us to keep that up to date. All the work that we're talking about for the training site, we're going to do in-house. Our own personnel are going to actually do the work. We just need that funded for the material purposes. Outside of it, we do have to bring in a crane to lift the boxes. And then Station 2's, when we built Station 2 on Loudon Drive, rebuilt it a couple of years ago, we went with a residential style kitchen just because that's what we could afford on the budget we had to do the building. And we have 2 companies, basically 8 people a day out of that station. And if we have a hurricane or call back, or we've got to bring more people, it would be a nice upgrade for them to have a commercial style kitchen like the other stations have to keep up with the amount of cooking that goes on out there. Of course, with the commercial style kitchen, as Amy can probably attest to this, because I think we just upgraded the wreck, it's, you get a commercial style hood, which is very expensive.
Chief, looking at these, I guess, 4 items that are a little more bite-sized, portable radios, air packs, training site upgrades, kitchen upgrade. I think I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Can any of those things be funded by fire impact fees?
Good question.
I think it's gotta be-
I wouldn't think.
I wouldn't think so.
Construction.
With being replacement stuff.
Can we call them something different? I mean, I'm serious. You go to the doctor, he's like, well, I can't call it a checkup, but I'll call it.
Well, typically, if it's not $100,000 or more, well, I guess that's just for rolling stock. It would-
Well, they're gonna put all this on the rescue truck, right?
Yes, sir. That's what we'll back to after. Any other questions? That's best I can explain it to you.
Yes, sir. I already explained communications and I apologize for handling that impact when I did, but it's out of the way. In our 5-year capital improvement plan, usually, generally, the only thing we have on it is for our vehicle replacements. And we have 20 Dodge Durangos on there. I just want to put this in perspective for you. Currently, we have not even received the vehicles that we ordered last year. They are still waiting on equipment that's on. So I have 23 vehicles sitting on the ground in Columbia right now, almost a year ago. And my fleet has depleted. Council voted or discussed and agreed upon, I won't use the word vote, several years ago under my predecessor, to replace 20% of the fleet per year, which is generally 20 vehicles. Right now, as it stands, we have the most vehicles that I have seen over 90,000 miles since I've been in a command staff position in the last 7 years. Generally, it's a 5-year rule, kind of like with Richard. It's about 5 years or anywhere between 85 to 100,000 miles. They get deadline because street miles is road hard and put up wet. And that's what these vehicles are. They're running, they're stopping at red lights, they're driving, encountering is much different than being on an open rural road like the county does. Plus they could drive much faster there. But I say that because right now, 20% of my fleet is at 90,000+ miles. I'll piggyback off what Dan said earlier. He's replacing 2 motors in 2 of our vehicles, the cams and shafts and all that stuff. We would never, ever have replaced a motor in a 2014 or a 2016 year vehicle. And that's what we're doing. I need spare vehicles. So when a vehicle's down or it's in the shop, the officers have to be able to go to work. And right now, you see them behind the station back there, but not all of them are in operational order. I just put that in perspective because when we got the hospitality officers approved last year, it was on the caveat that I said, hey, can we do this out of HTAX? And we won't ask for vehicles for those 5 people. Well, those 5 people add that onto the rest of the fleet, and that's 5 vehicles under what we're supposed to have. And we kind of been playing the shell game once again, just to keep that going. But that's what I need. Hopefully we'll get these other vehicles back to us soon. But if we order vehicles tomorrow, we probably wouldn't get them for another 365 days. So much like Richard, I made the comment to Ms. Wallace that if we're denied the 20 vehicles, I'm going to come back next year and ask for 40. I know we won't get it probably, but it's the only way we're going to stay in this vote. Just this morning, when we were sitting up to start this meeting, one of my detectives was struck in his vehicle and it totaled his cruiser. So it's another car gone that we don't have. It was not our fault, thankfully.
Is he okay?
He's okay, but he was a detective on his way to work and a car pulled out in front of him and he T-boned him. The car's destroyed. It's not going to be replaced.
You know, if the other driver has insurance.
It looked like it. I looked at the vehicle picture of the other driver and it looked like he might have had insurance.
You know, this-
From the police officer perspective.
you know this better than me, but like 1 out of every 6 cars out there is being driven by uninsured drivers.
Yes, sir, I do. But again, I'm not trying to pour mouth this because all of our departments have needs. And there's wants, and this is not a want, this is a need. I mean, this is a necessity. So any questions?
Doug, why are those cars sitting there? They're waiting on a chip or something?
Yeah, yes, sir. We were waiting on sirens. The sirens have shown up. We were waiting on chips for the light bars that were coming from another country, which we all know which country that is. And so I even agreed to have the vehicles marked there rather than have them come back here and sit again to be marked again, or to sit here longer to be marked. So they're actually being marked in Columbia, so that when they come here, they'll be turnkey to go out on the road. But yes, sir. We're just hoping the tires don't get dry rotted.
Yeah, that's terrible.
But that's what everybody's situation is. It's pipe, it's, supplies, it's killing us.
Dan used to put them things on himself. He had a cruiser, 5 of them, put them right in the shop, and he had them ready to go in a few days.
You gotta have the equipment though. There's
no equipment. Yeah.
I'm sure who this question should be directed to, maybe it's. When do we actually pay for these cars? Have we paid
No, when we get.
upon delivery? So we just, out of, that's part of the 20 cars he's talking about is out of a lease purchase.
Yes, sir.
We just haven't spent that money out of.
I think it's about 265,000, if I'm not mistaken, per year for 3 years. But it's a low interest rate here in town. It's lower than anywhere else we could have gotten.
But we haven't spent any of that money.
Well, I've got purchase orders that have been sent to us, so it's been spent.
No, it's, yeah.
Oh, no, okay.
Yeah.
But.
See how bad it really is.
We can wait till, we might have cars and stop making Dodge Durango's for the time being. So we wait till whenever we do that.
Well, we're not in a rush to buy these cars.
Sometime within, even if you could do it after the first of the year when revenue starts coming in, that would be okay too. The order meant to take a long time for them to come anyway. But we just, like Rich was saying, we've got a plan for the future. We've got 2 years coming up. We're going to have trucks and for this situation. I can't help it. Those drivers are running our people too. So. Also, yeah. They're giving them and release. They're just dog punch.
Is there any chance that a detective was driving a 2014 with 90,000 plus miles?
Yes.
All right, so I'm glad he's okay.
We can scratch one.
That's a win. I'm glad everybody's okay. I won't say that.
Doug's already gone over the communications. Did you want to add anything to that?
Sure.
All right, and then next report and Russ.
Yes, sir. 3 items on the building and grounds capital list. The first one was a town hall front door and exterior millwork replacement. That was actually budgeted for this year, but it was deferred. There's a parking garage repairs took precedent over those that were, but that was $150,000. Next item is a parking garage fee collection system. That is actually on the agenda tomorrow for further discussion, but that request is $150,000 and just a replacement of a pickup that our building maintenance tech drives, 2004 F-150. That's the only 3 items for the building and grounds.
The fee collection system.
That's just hardware and software to install in the garage to collect payment to parking.
Okay.
Any other questions on the building and grounds?
So we can't charge unless we do this.
Right.
How would the fee collection system work?
We get into this now or tomorrow?
Tomorrow, well, yeah, tomorrow, but I mean,
It's fully automated. There's not a lot of person.
Right.
Automated, no cash, different ways to pay.
it blocks, it block people from getting into the garage.
Sure.
Does it block people from getting out of the garage?
There is a gate.
Okay. I don't have to write parking ticket.
No.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah. Other capital items requested through the engineering, just infrastructure work, road resurfacing, 1.5 million. As talked about this morning, we have 150 miles of town roads and about that many state roads. We actually also spend money on. We leverage our money, the CTC money, to spend money on state roads that are in town.
We get our roads resurfaced under CTC money too?
We do, yes, sir.
We do.
We try to.
So this is in addition to that.
This is in addition to that. So CTC likes to see a match. If they give us money, they want to see us match it with our own money to increase our economy to scale on that type of work. But we have, like I said, 150 miles. I try to do a 20-year rotation. Every road gets touched every 20 years, for service every 20 years. And that will vary. I mean, I've been here 17 years. I'm about to start looking at roads that I did when I first got here. So some roads will last 15, some roads will last 25. It depends on the traffic and other attributes. But when a road starts to go deteriorate, it deteriorates at an exponential rate. So when it starts to go, it's going to go fast.
I'll tell you, Germantown Road is going, like you said, fast.
It has. It's on the list for this year.
Midland Parkway is really going fast now. All those little spots are all connected.
So my goal next year is to, if I get any of this funding, is to address Midland Parkway and to address East and West Richardson Avenue. Both of those roads they're high on the DOT's priority list as well. Other three items are just sidewalks, Central Avenue sidewalk, Lee Street and West Fifth South sidewalk. Lee Street and West Fifth South are designed, permitted, ready to go. Central Avenue sidewalk is in permitting. It will be ready to go next 30 to 60 days. So that's $941,000 worth of sidewalk. So we are ready to do the construction. We've just been working on through the last couple of years.
Yeah, they want this. I got elected mayor.
Sir?
Those sidewalks on this list when I got elected
Yeah,
mayor.
we've been working on those since then.
Mr. Mayor,
Listen,
spoke with Russ about first on-street sidewalks from Bryant Street all the way down to Main Street. We got a lot of people walking in the street because they don't have sidewalks there, which I think is very imperative. Or maybe the Central Avenue sidewalk project, because we ran into snags with Central Avenue, with the county, part of that little county, and we're trying to get the county to give us some money to cover their portion of it. Never got that worked out, did you?
They just done a request.
I'm sorry.
They just said, no, thank you.
Right. So in my opinion, I think we'd be better off
That's
trying
one
to
way of
do,
saying
and probably be cheaper to do the complete rest of First North Street all the way down to Main Street, because it's a shorter area and in my opinion, you have a greater need, because we were looking at that.
Mr. Brown, that project may qualify for CDBG funding too. So we may not come out of our.
Yeah, so I just want to get it on the radar screen so we can start thinking about it and then we get money. But as far as trying to do Central Avenue, it's a long stretch and a lot of that to the county. And so
Only about less than 10% of the county. Most of it is adjacent to town properties.
well, we could try and get that right to Parsons Road to start with.
That's what this phase is for. Is up the Parsons Road.
Parsons Road.
if you scratch out Central Avenue at First North Street.
I'd like to see First North Street in the town too. That'd be a good sign.
Mr. Cornett, do you have any dedicated funds for these types of projects?
Only for design, nothing for construction. I've got professional fees and my operating budget for design services.
150 miles. of roads. No dedicated funds.
CTC is up as a good.
Unlike
But that's not
Midland,
enough.
No, it's not nearly enough.
No.
Midland Parkway would be DOT, right?
It is, and they do have a contract this year to do some patching on it, but I talked to Marcy Timmons this week, and it won't touch what the need is. They had some money they could use on it in the work spots. But it is a priority for them. I'm gonna try to get CTC to help us with that next year.
Yeah, because patching, that thing needs dug out and refilled.
No, they don't want to do that because it's so close to the hospital. There's ways you want to approach certain roads depending on what their proximity and use are. Full reclamation would be difficult because it's for proximity to the hospital.
But that was one of the best paved jobs I've ever seen, and it was gone in a year.
They
year
didn't
and a
patch
half.
it, they didn't patch it appropriately before they did. That's all I've got.
Okay, thanks, Russ. Anybody got any questions for us? Okay, what's next? Maintenance. Okay, I'm sorry. Dan?
Yes, sir. This was brought up at a pre-meeting. It was a recommendation as reference to the public works facility. At this point, we have a 75 kW generator that operates the fuel pumps and partial buildings. I think Mark has full access and might even workability in his building. It's wired for half of my shop, but when we lose power, my other half goes dark. Actually, so we have that yellow, that 200 kW military generator that we should use behind fire and police department. And we keep it running, we run it every week, make sure it's running. And I just brought up I talked to Dominion Energy and I talked to Caterpillar and on the ratings and so forth. And the goal here was, if money was available, that, you know, Mark has helped me pour a pad back there and we buy an ATS switch and hook it to the building. Where it comes in, the power coming off the pole will run through that ATS switch and then put that yellow generator to operate the whole facility. This would give Ryan, he's got no power at all when we lose power. He's told in the dark over there. So what this would do, would use the old generator, like this, power goes off, it would come on, it light the whole complex, it run the fuel pump, and we leave 75 kW right where it's at, just in case the old one quits working, we can still, that's a manual fire, a manual transfer over. And if we still have fuel operations. That's what that was for. Transfer switch runs $12,208 plus tax, and like I told this morning, you know, I'm probably looking somewhere $25,000 to $30,000 to have a contract come in, dig it up, separate the electricity, run it to the ATS switch, and then, you know, hook it back up, for the plumbing and so forth. And that's what that would be for.
That doesn't buy another generator.
No, sir, the intention was to use that big yellow military one I fixed years ago.
Every generator we got from the hospital.
No, that the one we got in the hospital is in service, and that's that runs the fuel cycle. This is that big yellow one I had behind the fire and police that ran, and Charlie changed it out with
Yeah,
250.
yeah.
But that big yellow one that is a military generator, it's pretty much anything, you can't kill it. But it's got a Murphy system already installed in it for auto start. And like I said, it's just sitting there. So it was just, again, it was, if money was available, it was something that it would benefit 3 departments, not just mine. But that it was just a recommendation.
That's another thing, you know, we got determined there's no money.
I'm sorry?
I was telling the council that that's another thing we got determined with no money, but we got hurricane season coming up on us and we have rushed around during hurricane season, not having proper generators. When last one, I remember we were here, right, Jan? Me and you and Charlie and Mark, and we didn't have any generator here.
No, sir.
And so we got a portable generator, we rented one and put it in the parking lot. Hurricane ended up just rushing us, thank goodness, but we finally, Dan got a hold of some electric company, and they came up here and we got the generator and hooked it into the side of the old town hall over there. And I don't know what time it was.
Well, yes, that was that blue one, and we have, that's the one that Charlie took me up to, surplus to buy. I
Yeah,
went there and bought that one, and then, we fixed it and got it running, and that was the generator actually we took in town hall. I hooked in town hall here.
that was just some portable thing we made work for.
Well, yeah, it was in pieces when I got it from surplus. I put it back together, and, that's what we used for years for town hall. Yes, until they tied it into that big one, the annex was built.
We need to be prepared for these storms, and generators are what it's all about. That gas pump goes down out there, we'd be in trouble.
I have a backup for that in case it does, just in case we can still get fuel, as long as we got fuel in the above ground tanks.
Yeah.
I got 2 scanning pipes, and we can actually hook in a 12-volt battery, 20-gallon pump system, cut a hole in the fence, we can get fuel if in the above ground tanks. On the bottom, the in-ground tanks, we won't be able to do that until we put the power back into the fuse box. Yes, it was a recommendation, it wasn't a necessity. It's just, I know Ryan's in dark every time we power. So, and then you asked me first, I guess, first responder, or first people like that, and he's in the dark sitting there, waiting to go.
These are kind of things you can't wait till the last minute to do. It takes time for somebody to come up there and hook all that stuff up. Anyway, food for thought. Got anything else, Dan?
Yes, sir.
Next we have streets, Mayor.
Who's next?
Mark in the streets.
Okay, Mark.
So I have a pickup truck and a debris truck that need to be replaced. They're actually replacement vehicles. So I try to do a turnaround every 8 years and replace the vehicles that we have, been demolished and wear and tear on especially the debris trucks. The pickup truck, I would say, would be at this point in time a little bit more of a necessity. With the crews that we have, we're splitting crews up into small trucks. The small trucks that we're using probably should have been going years ago. But we're still using them for the time being. And like I said, the debris truck is on an 8-year rotation, 8-9-year rotation. So. And that's it.
Is it year 8 or year 9?
This is probably my 9. Passed 8 last year.
Rusty, you want to talk about the snow equipment?
Not really.
It's always gone so well.
Yeah, really, I was requested to add this. I didn't do this on my own report, believe me, but I was requested to include this on the budget capital request.
Well, we're in global warming now. That
Yeah,
cooling will come
we
in
can do that
another.
next January. But this would outfit 5 trucks with piles and spreaders.
Thank you for your input.
You're welcome.
Thank you for lightening this meeting every year.
So I guess this comes from our ice storm and snowstorm experience
2018, January 5th.
and the fact that our roads were pretty much shut down and the department was overwhelmed and it took a great deal of time. When was the last time that happened?
2018,
But I meant before that.
2014.
Ice storm.
Yeah, we were working behind them this year, but we found out we couldn't get them to June.
Yeah, that was 29, 2010, there was one.
Every 5 is huge,
Yeah, 89 after you go.
There's some between there.
not every 5 years.
So next we've got Parks and Rec, and wow, Amy's got quite a list here.
Only half.
While the list is long, a lot of my items are not as high dollar amounts, so. I'm sorry.
I said, how come she's the only one that's got anything funded? She fortunately has access to impact fees and hospitality tax, so.
Amy, I'm telling
Trying to keep
And the
keep moving
overtip.
there.
When the lower the request and the funding source already identified does make it a little easier.
Okay, so the first thing is pickleball lights. right now, we do have impact fees for that. We already have, that has already been put out to bid and has come back, so we already have that information. The next item, which is the Shepherd Park expansion, this is not if we join those two halves of the park and close Dorn's Way, anything, if we decide to do that, if we want to do anything like that, that would be additional. This money is strictly to, the neighbors wanted to install a fence. I've talked to them. The first quote I got for a fence was 16,000. They've agreed to do just replant very heavily along their property lines. So it's the planting for those, it's installing some swings, benches, putting in a couple parking spaces and trails along that new section area. And we can also use impact fees for that if we would so choose. The Woodlands Master Plan, I put this on here more or less just for discussion because it was listed in the CIP plan. I don't know if we're there, if council wants to pursue that at the moment, but I at least wanted to include that should you guys want to go ahead and move forward with that. The Doty resurfacing, we were hoping to do this past year. However, the lights for the Doty tennis courts came in much higher than we expected, so we had to push the resurfacing back. Initially, we can also use CDBG funds for pickleball lights. So if we don't want to use the impact fees, if we want to save those potentially for Cuthbert or something else, we can use CDBG funds for the pickleball lights. And then push Doty resurfacing back one more year, and hopefully there would be enough CDBG funds in 2024 to potentially fund that project as well. So it's just an option. The Cuthbert Community Center, I know I have shared some information with council previously, and that's on the agenda for tomorrow for further discussion. The Laurel Street resurfacing, just to kind of explain to council, so to resurface a normal tennis court is $7,000. You'll see I've got $29,000 here. It's because you pay per foot of linear cracks. And that court has cracks throughout the whole thing, which is why instead of, if we resurface it every 5 to 6 years as they should be resurfaced, you're looking at a $7,000 expense, but it has been deferred for so long that it's now $29,000. I don't have this on here, but I do believe we can use impact fees for this because we're going to reline the courts to include pickleball, which is something new because we do have a very large group of pickleball players in Somerville. And so I think that that could be funded with impact fees should we choose to fund that project. This is an additional trailer that we need. The gallon sprayer, that is a replacement. The gazebo for Azalea, every 8 years or so, we rebuild the wooden gazebos at Azalea. With the cost of wood, it's very expensive. And so again, we're looking at potentially either rebuilding this with the composite or simply just buying a replacement. And then hopefully we would not have to rebuild those completely every couple of years or every few years. Zero turn mower is a replacement. The same with the buggy track, the quad cab truck. Parks and Recreation does have some very old vehicles. We are currently waiting on 2 from this current year. Just as Doug said, they've been ordered for 6 months minimum. And we're just waiting on those to arrive. This would be replacing a 1998 Chevy, this vehicle here. So it certainly has served us well. The maintenance yard at Gahagan, we would like to push that existing fence. We'd clear the land behind it and extend that fence so we would have a yard for storage. And then in the future, at some point, if we wanted to, we could put a building there if we ever wanted to move the small engine shop. That would possibly be an area we could. But for right now, we would just be clearing that land, extending the fence, putting the culvert in, and it would be storage for us. The service truck is to replace the vehicle that our small engine mechanic drives. It's not a true service truck. Currently, it's just been retrofitted. This is also, hold on, my sheet. his is a 2002 vehicle that has over 150,000 miles as well. The next thing is a skate park design fee. So this is a fee that we would pay to a company. They would come in and design a custom park for us. That way we would have some real numbers to know what we would be looking at for funding if we ever did want to go ahead and pursue that. I know that there's interest in the community. The intent was always to expand the current, but as far as long-term maintenance and use of that park, I really truly believe that a custom park is the better option for the town. Long-term, while it has more of an upfront cost, long-term, the maintenance, it will save us, and it's a quality park and that everyone can really enjoy. But this would just be the design fee so that we would know truly what it would cost to build it. Park signage updates, we have started working on that this year. We're going through a lot of the signage in the park is the original signage to those facilities. Some parks do not have any signage at all. And so we have been methodically going through one park at a time and trying to update some of those. The sawmill signage and repair station. So we actually just received new signage for all of the main trailheads this year. And those will be going up soon with the exception of Luton because of the Berlin G extension. This signage is going to be for the connector trails to the neighborhood. So it's a map with the park, with the rules. So we are going through that trail and updating there as well. The next item is definitely a wish list. The $250,000 would not get us over it, would not get this project completed. This is a project I would love to do. I think the town of Somerville needs a splash pad. I would love to put it at Doty because we could use it then for summer camps. The Davis Bailey Park in St. George, when they just built theirs, it cost them $470,000 to install that splash pad. The reason that this isn't here is $250,000 is because we would hope that we could partner with local businesses or sponsors to fund the remaining part of this project. And then the Somerville Preserve is being funded through the Oak Brook TIF, so that money can only be used for this project. And that is what council voted on this previous month for the with Collins Engineering. So we are moving forward with the initial planning. And then once that goes out to bid, then I will be bringing that back to council for approval. Any questions for me?
Your definition of need. I wanted to know her definition of need.
There are certainly things on here that are wish, and then there are certainly things on here that are needs. So are you wanting me to go through and say which things are needs?
No.
Oh, okay.
You only said need at the splash park. That was why I was asking about need.
Oh, no, the splash pad is definitely a wish and something that that I believe that the town of Somerville would greatly benefit from.
Okay.
Yes.
So to do splash pad is not a need. Does that mean everything else is?
The Woodlands master plan is certainly not a need if council is not prepared to do or wants to move forward with that project at the moment. The Doty resurfacing, we certainly could push to the following year and use CDBG funds. Hopefully that would be available in 2024.
Given where we are, where we think we are revenue wise, I mean, yeah, this may not be the year to spend $100,000 with a consultant on a Woodlands master plan, but having said that, and this may not be something Amy, that you know off the top of your head, but I do think this council needs to at some point relatively soon address what we would like to see happen at Woodlands. I know that some park impact fees, I think I know that some park impact fees were used to purchase it. Is that correct?
Yes, if I remember right.
Right. So what I'd like just to figure out, is what percentage of the Woodlands property would have to be used for the park. And what we might want to do with the rest of it. I think that's something that anybody that's doing a master plan would want to know. I think it's premature, not just because it's a bad budget year, but I think this council's got to give direction to Amy and really to the whole town as to what we see the future of all of that tract. I don't think it was ever, I don't think that it was ever the intention at the time to devote all of it to park space. But since we used a portion of park impact fees as a portion of how we bought it, then we need to account for it. I guess there's always the option of just selling it and replenishing the park impact fees. And so I just don't think we're ready to move on it, but it's something that the council should consider in the coming months.
Just not to piggyback off of that, but to maybe add to it, a lot of in this list is deferred maintenance. If we don't have an adequate budget to maintain what we have, we need to be very cautious in our expansion planning. So very cautious.
Agree.
There are no other questions for Amy. We've got one last item under stormwater.
Yep.
Walmart was looking at the option to purchase a vacuum truck to clean the drains in the right of ways and around town. We currently have a small trailer mounted vacuum unit. It's several years old. It's just inadequate for the amount of infrastructure that we're trying to maintain. But we're looking at trying to clean the drains in every right of way in the town, whether it's in the DOT, the town streets and roads, anybody or any drainage that services citizens of the town of Somerville. The unit that we have, I think, holds maybe 1,000 gallons, 800 gallons of water or something like that. You spend most of your day refilling the water tank instead of cleaning pipes because of just the size of the unit and the size of the debris tank. So this truck would give us the ability, to clean on a larger scale. I'd like to put an operator in there full time. They'd be on the roads cleaning drains, 7.5 hours a day, 5 days a week, basically. Instead of right now, we clean driveway pipes after we dig ditches. We clean pipes as part of work orders. This would be getting ahead of work orders and cleaning drains proactively instead of reactively. Yeah.
Go on with that one. And we're doing stormwater.
Yep.
Keep my phone from ringing it on.
Mayor?
Mike,
Yes,
keep them
yes,
blood in the
sir.
bunker.
That's right. That's told me you could fix it. Once we start working on that side of town.
So Mayor, next what we have is discussion of the proposed budget, and Rhonda's gonna talk about that.
Okay.
Please up. I think that we've all had a lot of information, and certainly what I've heard is a lot of passion. All the department heads that spoke have a lot of passion about their jobs and what they're doing for this town, and you as council, I hear the same thing. You want what's best for this town, and although we may not all agree on the same things, that's what we're actually working towards. So that's good news. Unfortunately, there's just only so much money that I can find to go around at this point. And so I'm the messenger, don't shoot me at this point. We're going to talk a little bit about the expenses, and then I'm going to go back to the revenue and talk about a few things. And with every budget, there's budget assumptions, and these are things that you need to know, because, in the middle of the year, well, geez, Rhonda, you told us this. Well, there are things that we can't control. And the first one is health insurance. I think we'll hear from Chris later, but last year we had a 6.7% increase in health insurance. Dan and I both think this is probably very optimistic. I don't know that we're going to have 6% increase. Another reason for mid-year budget review. I think I've had discussions with Chris. We have some, the industry is just tough. right now. We did an increase of 5% in life insurance and 5% in workman's comp. Those might things. The other uncertainty, which I've talked about a little bit, is business licenses. This is the first year under the state program. When the dust settles, the end of May, I hope, we will know kind of where we fell out with what we projected and what we got. The tiers were different. We will, from listening to some conversation in my office, we'll probably come back to council next year, maybe tweak some of those levels or declining rates or some of that. The other unknown is the PIFA retirement contribution. The state legislature has not met on that or has not come up with a recommendation. I called people last week. I think Chris called people last week, and there's no information yet if that's going to increase or not. And has anybody else heard anything? Lisa, you heard anything on that? Okay. So I don't know. We don't. Pardon? Okay. So anyway, hopefully with the rates rising, that if they do an analysis of the fund at this point, then that will give them a little bit, kind of bolster it a little bit, and they won't feel like they have to increase the rate. The other thing is, like I said before, I think we ought to look at a mid-year budget review, and I just think that needs to be standard operating procedure. Because there are just too many things, and we need to leverage. If our income, if our property tax revenue goes up based on what the county bills out, then we certainly need to leverage that to provide services to our citizens. In my opinion. Anyway. All right, expenses. I think one. Okay. This is a summary of all the requests that you've heard from all the departments. And of course, you know, finance got the credit for axing everybody's request. And we had to start somewhere. There were certainly in every single department, we need to increase this guy's salary. We need to increase this girl's salary. They do a great job. Nobody's arguing that. There was just no way to kind of go through that and make those separate determinations. So we pretty much cut all those individual increases out and went to a pool. Public Works, Parks and Rec, Fire and Police, we gave a 3% pool to be distributed according to, you know, how Lisa would like to distribute it in conjunction with the department head. It's kind of the way we thought it through. The longevity we left in there, which I think came to about $63,000 for the whole town for this particular year's funding. The operational increases are very small. We left most of those in there. We tweaked some of those, but we left most of those in there. I think our department heads were very conservative. They recognize where they may be spending some more money and recognize where they could save some money. So I do appreciate everything there. As you can see, our biggest asset is personnel. You know, we're pretty much a 3-to-1 on personnel versus operating costs. Just like buildings need to be maintained, our personnel needs to be maintained, our overhead goes up out of no control over ourselves. So that's kind of where we ended up with trying to find a solution as far as what we could spend this year. Any particular questions about that? Yes, at this point, I came up with revenues of this amount, 41,488,900. Yes, Ryan, you have your own pool. Any particular questions on that? All right, can you go back to the revenues too, please? Okay, we're getting ready to start, or we're in the, right there, that's good. Sorry. That's right. So as you know, we are getting ready to kind of get in the middle of the TIF issuance and trying to get that going. As part of the TIF process, obviously we have to do a financial analysis. And this is actually just a summary of the big spreadsheet. This just shows the 1 year, so it doesn't have all the extra stuff on it. So we're just looking at this year now. As part of the TIP.
Just so you all know, this first page is what she just went over everything behind what you've already seen. Yeah,
This-
if you
Is this
go
at the
to-
front?
Yes, to the sheet at the front, your revenue, the red tab. All right, so that's just a summary of what you're seeing on that.
Is that
But
not
we
in?
don't actually have the summary. I can't read that.
I don't think so. Is that included? Beth, is that, yes,
Say 22.
Is this it?
This is it, right?
that's the full.
Yeah,
Detail.
that's
Yes,
it.
that's the,
That's it.
Oh, it's
Back
just
of the
turned
red
in a different direction.
which, where are you?
The back of the red tab.
Back of the red tab. Awesome. Thank
No,
you.
Not the
Yeah.
back red tab, but yes, the back of the first.
Yeah, there it is.
Got it, everybody got it?
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the same information that I went over in the very beginning. I was saying is as part of our TIP, we will be doing, after we get our 621 audit, we'll be presenting the financial information from 20 to 621 and probably year-to-date 622. They will want our budget for this next year. If I give them this budget, they're gonna say, Ms. Moore, I see that you got $2.8 million from a one-time pot of money. What are you gonna do next year? And my answer, or Lisa's answer might be, where we have the ability to raise millage, we're not gonna do that to our citizens. We're using this one-time pot of money. We do have the ability to raise millage. I think our millage bank is about 10, but I just kind of want you all to know that $2.8 million is 10, 11 mills. It's been the same for 3 years, is that correct? Oh. What, do you have it? So obviously that certainly is y'all's decision. I can, there are reasons for everything. Having the ability to raise millage and not raising millage is 6 of one, half dozen of the other, really. I mean, as long as we can do it, should we need the revenue? We can explain that to, because I would be asking that question. If I'm looking at these financial statements and I'm seeing you're paying operating expenses with one-time money, I want to know what your plan is. Long-range planning is another, good thing to do as far as that goes. But like I say, we do have the ability to raise millage, and we do have that money sitting there. Now, it's y'all's decision on how you use it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sanitation fund, 400,000.
We charge $96 a residential unit. 145 is that one, okay. And that money comes into the sanitation department. We budgeted that this year as well. We pay Waste Pro around $15,000 a month. It's about $1.8 million. And so we have excess revenues over expenditures in that fund. And we,
I just want to know what it was. Thanks. No slip.
so, yes, sir.
We're trying to find money wherever we
Yeah.
can.
And Ryan's gonna be spitting spitballs at me for long, so I'm taking his money. So that's just kind of, that was our best guess at how we can make this work.
So included in this balanced budget, how many of those capital requests Even the ones that showed that they were funded are not captured in this, correct? Or not?
The impact, I didn't address the ones with impact fees or hat or any of
Those are all
that.
Park and recreation.
So zero.
Zero.
The ones on hat.
Oh, no, the hat ones.
Yeah, so we're gonna go over the hat budget later separately, but yes, those.
Those could
items
be,
show-
they aren't in my
Oh,
budget
they
spread,
aren't, they
but
just
they could be.
I was wondering that because I saw stormwater for the back truck, but I didn't see it.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't included capital expenditures in anyone's budget at this point. To complicate things even more. Observation, comments, obviously this is just a working start.
I mean, I completely endorse the idea of a mid-year budget review. We had, I think, intended or expressed a desire of the council to have one this year. Had some personnel changes. We an audit that we thought was almost finished hadn't started. So we didn't have the mid-year review that I think we all intended to have, but I think it ought to be standard operating procedure as well. I mean, I've done legal work for towns, 1,000, 2,000 people. And they have, it's just at 6 months, you amend your budget as a matter of course.
Dan and I still have a lot of digging out to do, but I really would hope that next year when we're looking at this budget, that we could incorporate, maybe we don't go 5 to 10 years, maybe we at least go 3 years, kind of a look forward, so we can look at some things. One of the things on Doug's communication request is I put the 3-year cost in there. Because if I just put the 1-year cost in there, you don't know, and then we're obligated for the next 2 years and you don't even know about it. Lisa, would you like to have the floor, talk about anything else regarding this?
Well, obviously, you see, we've got the transfer from ARP of $2.8 million. That money was used essentially to balance this budget. And I know we're gonna talk about ARP funds a little bit later, but I did just want to point that out, that money is in there. The transfer from hospitality tax, we did bump that up.
Yeah.
Pretty significantly, but we do have, I guess, projected revenues coming in pretty well, better than expected.
I think we're gonna hit 5 million in that, on that revenue level this year, and that's certainly significant. We budgeted 2.1, I think, for this year. So food for thought.
So two greatest revenue generators we have, business license and fees and property taxes.
Yes, sir.
So what do we need to do to increase our revenue?
I mean, diversify.
Diversify. What do we need to do? Where are our opportunities to do that?
Well, we have asked, and you'll hear from the departments a little bit later on the fee structure. We have kind of challenged all the departments to look at their fee structure and see, are we missing something? Do we have some outdated rates on things? I mean, nobody wants to increase fees, but let's just look at it and see. You know, is it gonna generate $5 million? No. But you gotta start somewhere. You count pennies before you count dollars.
We have obviously just recently looked at impact fees, so hopefully we'll start seeing those revenues.
That can help with new, you know, obviously new things. But I think to a couple of your points, Councilman Touchberry, is that having a source or a fund of maintenance and that we use would be good.
question about road maintenance. And we do have 2% of our franchise fees that have been set aside in infrastructure. So that is there. I think it's depleted at this point simply because of the projects that we had. So it is zero at this point, but it should start building back up over time. It's just going to take a little bit of time to build back up.
Yeah, it was originally created to finish Bear Island Road. And now that that's done, it's just moving on to other projects.
And we typically have a line item in our budget for capital expenditures, even if it's $2 million or $3 million, and we took that out.
So 2% of the franchise.
2% of 4, 2% of 5.
Yeah.
So 40% of franchise fees is dedicated.
Okay. I was just ask $40,000. No, that's
40%.
Yeah.
Okay, 40%.
2% of 5.
Thank you. 2% of the.
So how much?
Yeah.
Of the
How much
5%.
roads will $40,000 buy us?
Well, that's what I get.
I can give from me to you. No, but,
Not even. Couldn't get mobilization.
So what you're actually seeing in here under revenue is the 3%, right?
It's,
Under
yeah,
the
yeah,
franchise fee.
60%,
That's-
that's
yes.
right. That's right. So like Dominion, I think we got $3 million, I believe, last year from them, or right at 3 million, and roughly 1.8 went to general fund. 1.2 in the roads.
40%.
All right.
Yeah, so as far as other options,
That building, we were trying to give that right back to them.
oh, yeah.
And then
That's true.
Am I good right now? Or sufficiently depressed?
Rhonda, is that correct? We're
1.25.
looking at 1 mil is worth about 250,000? Yeah, that's 268, okay.
Can't do that, man. But I can do that.
If no one has any other questions on that, we can move on to presentation of other funds. Good with that?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's follow through.
Yeah.
They can't hear you on video.
Thing right here. Right. So the presentation that I sent Beth is outdated. I've actually done a more outdated one since then, but I'm gonna blame it on, I sent it to her right after surgery. So I'm gonna blame it on the Oxycontin because it's way better than what I did. So there you go. It was a really bad surgery. Anyway, what you see here is there's actually more that I've actually submitted since that time. We've actually got another Firehouse Subs one submitted. And we also have a Duke Energy one submitted and a Leary Firefighter one submitted. The Firehouse and the Leary are both for the Fire Marshal's office. The Duke Energy is actually for the water rescue for the fire department to try to get them some equipment for their water rescue team. We haven't heard from any of those. These are all ones. The only one we've heard from since I did this one is Firehouse Subs for 16,000. We got denied on that one, so we put in another one for much less this round, and we won't hear from them for probably another good 3 months. Beth, do you want to go? We do have a BWC one that's due. It's coming up in about a week and a half. I'm waiting to hear from Jessica. We're trying to get a quote from the police department so we can submit that one. And I want to say Jessica from the police department and Tony Fayla from the fire department, without them, like I could never do this job because they are the people behind the scenes helping me do all of the information that I need. They get it for me. So I just want to like publicly state, like, thank God for them. Holspire is coming up in June. That is for the streets department and the bike and ped committee, because I believe they came to you guys a few months ago for some money. And we're looking to do a crosswalk with that grant money if we end up getting it. But that application doesn't even open until June. Next slide, Beth. We haven't heard about the AFG one. I wrote that one back in November. We haven't heard anything about it for turnout gear for Chief Waring here. We haven't heard anything to my knowledge about getting it. The one below it was a grant that one of the firemen had submitted. It's actually being administered by the county. It was submitted prior to me being hired. We're kind of just trying to figure out how we're going to cash match it at this point, I think, right?
Yeah, we have plenty of cash matches. It's just
Maybe in kind or something, right? How we're going to proceed with that one.
They get the money back.
Right. So that's pretty much like what we're working with grants right now. Go ahead, Beth. CDBG, if I walk around with like a look on my face, it's probably because of this, because this gives more headaches than anything else. We don't have our allocations for this year yet. They have not come out yet. This is a tentative. The infrastructure improvements have also changed. I think Russ talked about maybe not doing North Gum Street and changing it to something else. I know Amy's changed about doing the Doty Park lights, maybe changing that to something else. These can all be changed, no worries. If you guys have some suggestions on what you want to see CDBG money used on, we can definitely incorporate that. We're in the middle of a review period right now as far as what kind of like projects we want to do with that money. So if you have any suggestions, I would love to hear them. As far as our public services, we always do Home of Hope and Hope's House. They are the two homeless shelters. We always give them a small lump of cash, and they're really good about spending their money. This year, we've decided that we'd like to give the YMCA a small chunk of change. They want to do a voucher program for like LMI area kids, like maybe they can't afford to do a program in that area, their parents can't afford it, so they're going to do a voucher program for kids. They're going to be responsible for checking people's income levels and keeping track of how many kids they're actually getting. And then Katie's Crops would be the other one, because of the clientele that they're working with, they do qualify under CDBG because they are, you know, outsourcing like food, that sort of thing. And then Pastors is our fair housing counseling. I work a lot with Mr. Brown with this one. Every month they do a Zoom meeting where they will do fair housing counseling to anyone who signs up. And I just spoke to Mr. Brown the other day and he'd like that to continue this coming CDBG cycle also. Do you guys have any questions or comments about CDBG? Any suggestions on plans?
Sidewalk that you mentioned before. The sidewalk that you mentioned, it was First Street, First
Yeah,
Street.
first of all,
Okay.
a section of it's done from Oak Street down to Bryan Street. But from Bryan Street to North Main is where it needs to go.
Is there any like design project already in place for that one? So we would have to like start by funding the design project of it. Yeah, I mean, that's probably like a multi-year CDBG project because we would have to start with Russ getting the design and all that stuff. And we can definitely, North Hickory is just about done, right? We're just waiting on the railroad to finish that one. That's been 3 or 4 years and it's finally
I think
done.
they're finished. I came by last time I drove, it looked like the railroad did that piece across the tracks, but I think it's finished.
Is it all finished? Is it? Good, then that one's all done. We can go ahead and close that one out then. Yeah, and then we can change anything else. If Amy wants to change anything with the resurfacing or any of those, you know, the thing that we're bound by is it does have to be either in an LMI area, which is considered Census Tract 107, or it has to serve a certain clientele.
So we are limited. It's not like the ARP funds where it's kind of like a free for all. This is more, you are bound by certain restrictions and HUD will check it and they will come back on you. This year, I did give quite a bit of money to Chief Waring for Station 1 to rehab that because they are in an LMI area. So they were able to do that, and they were also able to get a Polaris emergency vehicle with CDBG funds because it did fall in that area, and they're mostly servicing that. Beth, go ahead. These are the allocations that we've got the last couple years. According to our head rep, he's anticipating that number going down for this year only because for whatever reason, the census is showing that our population declined. And they base it on our population. And I don't see how they can, right, I mean, I'm telling you, this is, yeah.
Just about everybody's count was less than the estimates.
Yeah,
And
now it
the
might
rea-
only go down a little bit.
And reality is the estimates are much more likely to be correct than the count. Our estimate was about 54,000 for 2020 and came in at 51,000. Counts defective. The estimates are probably correct.
They're anticipating about 50,900, right? If we fall below 50,000 is when we start getting into trouble because then we start losing our CDBG funding. So I don't anticipate that being a problem the way that we're being built up as much as we are, but I would anticipate somewhere between 316 and 320 as far as our money for this year. So we can adjust things as we get those. All right, Beth. The rest of them are just like pictures I took of some of the things we did with CDBG money. Keep going. All right, and then these are our CDBG CV funds. These are actually our rental assistance that you might remember back in the summertime, we agreed upon to give Origin SC a certain number of money. And then we would give rental mortgage utility assistance to anybody who fell within town limits. As of that date up there, we had given 256,000 and some, and we had like 168. Since that time, I've probably done at least 4 more checks. So we're probably down to more like 140,000 left right now. The need just wasn't as great as we originally thought it was going to be. And I think a lot of that is people call and they think, well, I have the Somerville address, but they're not really in some, I live in the county, but I have a Somerville address. And I think that's what happened is there was a lot of those, but it is providing something that our residents need. We also had reallocated 13,000 to help Lenny put Wi-Fi and camera access to Doty and Wassamasaw. That was just as a result, if COVID ever does come back and gets to the levels we were at before, he can live stream a little bit easier with that money. So we've given him a little bit of that money, and that was eligible under that funding. Okay, Beth.
Just a tidbit on why the Wi-Fi is important. This PASSIS program that PJ's come up with to help people, it's the Fair Housing Act, to help people stay in their homes and that sort of thing, might be in trouble with their mortgage or whatever. But they have to, they can attend the meeting on Zoom. They have to have Wi-Fi so they can Zoom in to get the information. So it's very timely that Lenny's gotten that done because it really helps a lot of people who can't afford to purchase Wi-Fi.
And I'm not sure where we're at with that. Is it?
Wi-Fi is up for actually this week. Should be getting hopefully the rest of that cameras. Wi-Fi and IP cameras. Wi-Fi is up. Cameras. Probably next week.
I mean, most of our CDBG projects have been, if they're not started or completed, they're very, very close. Like I know Amy, I give her money, she's like Johnny on the spot. She's spending it as fast as I give it to her.
She's like, don't say that.
Like nobody can take it. I mean,
No.
she's like, how much more can you give me? I'm like, let me look, let me see what I got. So.
If you don't spend in a hurry.
Right. If you don't claim it, it's going to Amy, so I can tell you.
Somehow I think Amy's building a reputation.
And I know Chief already bid out the renovation for Station 1, and I know they're waiting on the Polaris. I think it's like back ordered, right? So I mean, like all, and Russ is just about, what must be done with North Hickory. So like we're moving along on all of these things that I think in the past, maybe we kind of sat on for a while and they just weren't moving along very quickly. When I got the job, one of the first things I said was, there's a lot of money sitting here and I don't know why, and we're spending it. So like, if it's gonna help somebody, let's do it. That's why this next slide, a year ago, part of CDBG is you have to be timely or HUD takes the money away from you. And you can only be at a certain amount. You can only be at 1.04, I'm sorry, 1.5, yeah. And right now we're at 1.04. And last year at this time was 2.49. Like we were having like last year's allegations, never spending it, and then getting a whole new set of allocations. So now we have all of this money sitting here, but never spending it. Yet we were paying people out for things that they were doing, but never reimbursing ourselves, the town, for it. So, which to me didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like if we're writing a check to say Home of Hope, why are we not drawing down on that money to pay the town itself back for that? So, and Dan can tell you, I'm sending him a text every day. Like, you need to draw down on this and approve this right now. So we have got that number down. And I hope to continue that. I'm hoping with this year's allocations that whoever does get money, they know, like, please spend it as you get it, as you can. I think the next one, that is it.
Training sessions at the rec,
Training stations.
training sessions.
Oh, well, that's,
Amy will conduct them.
well, I did do an actual grant for
And spend it as quick as
AARP
you get it.
that Mr. Brown helped me with one for AARP. And literally I wrote it the week that I fell for a balance class at the senior center. And so I'm hoping we get that one because that one would actually help with a lot of our senior citizens and it's in our LMI area. And I think that would be something that at least our residents would really benefit from if our AARP gives it to us. They only give like 3 per state. But hey.
Good many of them in this room.
Hey, 50 and over, I'm getting pretty close myself. So I was like, all right, let's do, especially after falling off ladder. So, but that's something I hope we do get. Since I got hired in March of last year, we have gotten 211,000 in grant funding, not including our CDBG funds. One of the things we have really tried is to get a lot of smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms for our fire prevention program. Chief Waring can tell you. Captain Lee has them all over his office. We also got 3 master fire investigator kits. And then it talks about Fire Station 1 in the Polaris and the North Hickory. That's basically all I have. It's just, if you guys have any suggestions on how, or if you see a grant, Mr. Brown's really good about getting with me, like, hey, I saw this grant, can you do something with it? Terry just emailed me recently about something with Russ for a retention pond. Like, if you see stuff, I want to do it. So if we're eligible for it, let's go for it. Let's get the town money because obviously we need it. So, and like I said, I'm one of the few who are not asking for money. I'm trying to give you money. So, and I don't mind working for it, but just please let me know. And if you have any suggestions for CDBG, please reach out to me because I'm always looking for something, especially in that census tract 107. If we can do sidewalks, if we can do lights at Jody or whatever we need to do, let's do it. So, any questions?
Thank you so much.
Oh, you, thanks. Oh, thank you.
She and Jessica, I mean, almost like she works for us. Seems that way. She does the same for us as everybody else. Everybody's email.
Thank you.
But we turn out a lot. All you do is ask.
That's what I said. All they can tell you is no. So it doesn't hurt to ask.
Listen, we as a police department, I just tell you.
Thank you. Well, I couldn't do without Jessica and Tony. Like literally the 2 of them, they saved me on a lot of occasions. So thank you.
That's why Doug doesn't need anything.
I just want you all to know.
Thanks.
That's why Doug doesn't need anything, because you do so much for him.
I don't know about that.
I just wanted to say, PJ's an energizer bunny. I mean, she finds money where nobody's thought to look. And she's been very effective for helping the town of Somerville in so many ways. So I'd like to give her.
Losing a grant property.
Sorry, Miss Rhonda, we didn't clap for you. I feel terrible.
Mr. Mayor, I think, hospitality, yes.
Hospitality. That'll show us some money.
I'm gonna introduce this fund and I'm handing over the same. I budgeted the same amount, but I really think we're going to end the year up here in the hospitality at 5 million. This fund also pays for our public information officer and team 6, I believe, downtown of the police department. One of the biggest expense items in here is contractual services. That is, the payment to Somerville Dream and to the Chamber of Commerce for their professional fees. Also in these line items are special events, and I'd kind of like to turn it over to Amy. When I actually prepared this, and I apologize, I did not put the special event increases in this line. They're actually over here. They're not noted in here as increases. So I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Just real quick, that exit 199 interchange, that is the contracted services for the maintenance of that interchange. The special events budget, that is, it's the 4th of July festival, it's the Christmas tree lighting, it's movies in the park, it's this concert series that we do in Hutchinson, the truck or treat, the brunch events. I believe that's it. There's a couple dollars in there to add, it's $4,000 for some very small adjustments to the Christmas lights in downtown Somerville this year. I don't believe, so we had requested an increase, and that increase primarily was because the town wanted to do an event for the Somerville's 175th birthday. So they were going to do a birthday bash, but the dollars for that is what was taken out. So I know that committee, because there's a committee working on that event, will likely probably try to find some funding in a different area for that.
We have been getting, Rev has been sponsoring some of the events, and I did not budget anything.
Yeah, I think we'd be happy to try to answer any questions if anybody has any on hospitality.
Anybody got any questions on hospitality?
I'm not seeing the impact fees in the booklet. Do you have the chart?
I just kind of wanted to give everybody a little summary of where we were on impact fees. We've been talking about that a lot, have a lot of needs. And as of March 1st, I believe I have this correct. These are the balances in each of their respective areas. We have, as you know, we collect residential impact fees and commercial impact fees. And residential goes to parks, fire, and municipal. Commercial fees just go to fire and municipal, I believe. And the impact fee structure for commercial is certainly a little bit different depending on what kind of property it is. And Don has a schedule of that. That's kind of where we are on impact fees. We got a total of $2.5 million to be spent appropriately.
That's what we have as fund balances. What is the annual revenue?
It depends. I don't remember. Let me look and see. I can tell you what.
Well, how are you gonna answer that?
just triple their impact.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that, what we've got is what we had before and parks.
Right.
Parks should remain about the same, right? Bob gone, but I think that's right. What's gonna jump up is fire and municipal.
Presuming that the rate of development stays the same.
Huh?
Presuming that the rate of development stays the same.
Correct.
8% inflation.
The rate per house. Per structure. Yeah.
In 2020, we took in 687,000.
That was across all three categories.
Yeah. So that's basically what I had to do is kind of reconstruct that a little bit and split it into the area different.
She said 600.
I can get that details too. You just don't see these totals very much in our regular meetings, and I just want to make sure that you kind of were aware, knew where we were.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we'll talk
Can I
about.
ask one more question?
Sure,
Sorry. Just
sure.
came to my slow brain. Out of those fund balances, what's already been committed? Or are those uncommitted fund balances at this time?
I did want to mention the fire, because the fire could be committed on Station 6. And that's going to kind of depend on that. The others, I don't think we have a commitment on, other than I think.
Amy's got a
Amy's
request
got-
for two, right?
Yeah, did we approve anything at the last council meeting specifically? Okay.
No.
So yeah,
Put
there's.
it all off till this retreat.
There's a lot in the works, which is another reason why I want to bring the slide to you, so you had the information on which to base that decision.
Question. Are there funds that have to be used anytime soon? Because the impact is the other thing is they have to be used within 30 years.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Jesse.
Can we use hospitality tax for the programmer for Parks and Rec? So we'll still be providing programs. for people.
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know, you have to look at whether a programmer is bringing in tourists or if a programmer is really working with our citizens.
I think is it tourism that defined as more than 15 miles away?
I think they might have changed it, didn't
As big as Somerville is, it could be defined as, Oak Brook and, Nexton and. They have.
What was that, Beth?
The state, what the state accommodations tax, like, not tourism, they've been more. Mile. So they'll consider it as something that's not public coming.
All right, Mayor, if we're ready to move on. We can look at American Rescue Plan. Should be in there. So I just wanted to go over, obviously, we received a payment of 3.8 million in August of 21. We anticipate the second payment of 3.8 million in August of 22. You're trying to find your page. It should be behind the orange tab. The appropriations that council has approved so far are the employee vaccine bonus of 1.4 million, the home repairs and weatherization for 221,000, and of course, the mental health crisis intervention, and that is funding for 3 years, Dan, or is it 2? I think it's 3. So the total appropriations at this point is 2.195 million. That's leaving an available balance of 5.6 million. The question we have, and that I think Chief Waring brought to you at the last council meeting was potential funding of the fire station of 2.7 million. Now, it would take the 2.7 million out of ARP plus the 1. How much is in? impact?
1.2 or whatever.
Yes, 1.2 in impact fees to fund that fire station. So obviously, depending on your decision about funding the fire station, that will either leave you a leftover balance of 2.8, or it can free up some funding and leave you a balance of 5.6.
Was it just miraculously approved for us and approved Fire Station 6, the balance from ARP was probably semantics, but I can't let it go. It was not an employee vaccine, but COVID gave it made people vaccinated or meeting exception to be a precondition for getting the bonus. Proposed vaccine mandate for our employees, which would have been unconstitutional, gotten us sued, and severely, I think, depleted Chief Waring's ranks in the fire department. That's kind of how we have so many people from North Charleston taking pay cuts. They weren't getting the vaccine, they came to work for us, so it wasn't a vaccine.
We just wanted to bring this to your attention. Obviously, I think that's something for you all to think about. We do have on tomorrow's agenda consideration of the purchase order for Station 6.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
I thought the motion at the council meeting was to postpone the vote
Until
until
after the budget return.
until the May Finance Committee meeting or special call meeting called subsequent to budget retreat.
And you're correct. That's what I was going to,
Okay.
to tell you is that it is on the agenda for tomorrow. However, when I did go back through my notes earlier this week, I did see that my notes did specifically say that. So,
And does the same, wasn't said that way, but I think the same would apply to Parks and Rec, those two requests.
I think the Parks and Rec, that we have those correct as being on this agenda.
Okay.
However, obviously, if the decision on the fire station does have a major impact on the
Not making a decision may have a major impact on the cost of the fire station.
Anybody need a break? Ready for a break, Mayor?
Yeah, we can take a break. Still some time.
We're live streaming and recording now.
Okay, everybody. Get started. It's Miss Amy again.
Yes, so we're gonna do a review of the fee schedules, and the first one on the list is Parks and Recreation.
Then Amy, tell us how to collect all this money.
So I did present an initial draft for an updated fee schedule for Parks and Recreation to the Parks and Recreation Committee a couple months ago. This primarily is the same thing. There were a couple things added or changed. I did lower the rental facilities based on the feedback that I got. I think we also adjusted the special events from that committee meeting as well. I will say, and we'll talk about this a little bit more additionally tomorrow with Cuthbert. Our rental facilities are incredibly below the market value for those rental facilities. Not so much the Rollins Edwards Community Center, but the other buildings. If you look at a building like Cuthbert, you can't find a building of that size that's less than $1,000, whereas we're renting it for $275. By the time we pay for the staff that are working those events, we're not even covering or barely covering our costs, let alone able to make any money to be able to maintain those facilities. So I do think in the future, we need to at least consider increasing those fees. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have on the fee schedule as it's proposed.
And particularly Cuthbert and all, especially with the money we have and using impact fees for new things. This is the best way we can have of paying our own operational costs for doing things. And if we rebuild the Cuthbert Center, if that's the decision, that money helps offset those expenses also. So, I mean, I think the fee changes need to be done, and I just see it as a use fee. And also, if our prices are too low, we're cutting out private places that rent out the same thing, and we shouldn't be in that competition. You check Mount Pleasant or Charleston. I don't know about North Charleston so much, but their market rates are better for everything they rent. Yeah, we need that operational money. I mean, that's easy to see from this retreat.
So going back to Cuthbert and Billy, you have shown proposed 275?
That's based on the feedback from the Parks and Recreation Committee. When I initially had brought them to them, it was higher. But the feedback that I received was that they'd like this, it was to be, it was a big jump at that point, was to lower it closer to that resident.
Well, I could kind of see that now.
Yes.
Because it is not appealing but if we rebuild it, I think the change is warranted. And I know I talked to Amy, my picture of that, if we decide to do it, is a kitchen, better to be divided space like this so you can use it for multiple things, and an outside concession stand. So when you have the Azalea Festival, we can contract somebody to rent that and sell things out the window or for any events we have. And also bathrooms accessible from the outside. And we can take those bathrooms, tennis courts, and move them somewhere else.
And if someone rents the Rollins Edwards Center weekend, Friday through Sunday, the proposed fee is $2,000, right?
Yes, sir. Again, we talked about this in detail in the committee meeting, so I wasn't going to rehash it out. But we are proposing doing away with the resident, non-resident rates for the rental facilities because it does create a lot of issues for us administratively.
So anyway, what I wanted to ask you is, what are how long can they use the building until what time?
They have it from that morning till 10 o'clock for their event, and then they have an hour to clean up. So they would have to be out of that building by 11 p.m.
All right, that's what I wanted to know. I mean, the $2,000 doesn't bother me. I just want to know how long they have to do it. So what constitutes a half day on the weekend?
They have it from 9 a.m. in the morning until 2, or they can do it from 2 until 11.
9 to 2, okay. And what is the birthday package? $200. What's the birthday package?
Yes, sir. So at the Rollins Edwards Community Center, we do have, sometimes people want to rent the gym just to do a birthday. So after hours, we only do it when the facility is closed. But after hours, they could come in, they would rent that. They would have the gym, I believe it's 2 hours, and one multi-purpose room.
You know, kitchen rentals, if we have a commercial kitchen in there, right?
Yes, sir.
So if someone has a small business cooking at home and they wanted to use a commercial kitchen to enhance their business, is this allowable during that period of time when they rent it?
Yes, sir. That actually is what that fee would be, and that is a new fee. We were approached by someone who would like to use the kitchen for 10 to 15 hours a month, and that is what that fee would be.
Okay.
Explain that to me, Amy. I want to rent the kitchen. How much is it per hour, per day, per what?
So what we had worked out, it's 10 to 15 hours a month. It is 10 to 15 hours, I'm sorry, 10 to 15 hours per week. So she is going to be paying $400 a month to have access to that kitchen for 10 to 15 hours per week. So we're doing
40 to 60 hours
yes.
for less than $10 an hour to use the kitchen.
Yes, sir. For the kitchen. Yes, it's $400 per month is what she would be paying us.
That doesn't seem to make financial sense to me.
So we had looked at what other commercial kitchens rent for, and it's pretty comparable. It was a little bit less than what the kitchens that we had seen in the area renting for. This is really kind of a trial for us to see if it was successful. It's possible that we could even have, a second or third renter potentially working out of that kitchen.
Have you called the people that had, I believe it was in Charleston, they had a kitchen circle thing going where you could use a kitchen and sell it there, and they used to do like 4 people at a time or something like that.
And there's a commercial kitchen in Charleston. That's who we looked at to compare the
Okay.
rates to. I don't know if it
That
was
might
that
be it,
same
that
one or
one.
not.
Because I know they backed down some from what
Mhm.
they were doing.
Well, anyway, the reason I brought that up, I go walking out at the farmer's market all the time, and I talk with some of the vendors out there. A couple people that sell food, they were asking me about a commercial kitchen that they, so. I guess they would think that they could, have the place cook the food the night before and sell it the day after, whatever. It's a thought. We realize that helping small business grows the town, the town's future. That's what we're considering, the dream folks are trying to do with an incubator small business. Sort of thing. This has been we've talked about this in the past. If we can find a way to do it, that help somebody grow a business, might make sense. I need to do talking on it before we make a decision.
Talking about like somebody coming in and rent the kitchen and have a little business.
Well, like some of the people like at the farmer's market, for instance, I'm not, early Saturday morning to sell that stuff. But if they don't have a commercial kitchen, they could probably rent that facility and prepare their food and then have it ready for that Saturday morning to sell it.
Yeah, that's actually what the idea was. Put it.
Yeah. So
Mr. Brown, that is what this is. This is one of the person that had originally approached us. She is a vendor at the farmer's market. She sells cookies, and that's what she'll be doing in the kitchen, is preparing those cookies primarily for the farmer's markets that she attends.
But it might be something we might want to, do that in a committee meeting with Parks and Rec, and everybody can chime in and let's decide whether we want to do it or not. If we're going to do it, how we're going to do it.
Amy, what if
We're
somebody
already doing
comes and wants to
We're already
rent
renting it.
only for Saturday night party?
Yes, sir. So we discussed this with her. She understands that we rent the facility and that there are times that it would be closed and she would not have access to.
It would not have access to the kitchen?
That she would not have access to. Yes, she has
This
to
may-
operate within our regular business hours when we're open to the public.
Who is she?
So I don't know if you guys know the Cookie Chick. She works, she has a booth at the farmer's market. She is the one who had approached us about possibly doing this.
So if somebody wants to come in and have a Friday night event, whatever, and they need the kitchen is available to them to use as part of their rental.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, if the building is rented, the kitchen would not be available to anyone other than the person renting that facility.
Okay.
Yep.
And so the Cookie Chick or whoever she is.
She would.
You just wanted to say that.
Yeah, it sounded good to me, whoever the Cookie Chick is.
Did you run into her last
But
We make the facility schedule a month at a time, so we know when the building's gonna be closed. So we would just communicate that. It's the same with our programs. If we have a rental, we have to cancel programs. So we just communicate all of that before the month even begins. So they would know like, okay, these days the facility is closed. I won't have access. So that way she can plan accordingly if she needs to come a different night.
Well, I guess what I'm asking, are they responsible for cleaning the kitchen?
Yes.
They are. And so just kind of anytime she wants to walk in, as long as it's not used, she can use it.
That's correct. As long as it's within our operating hours.
And for $400 a month,
Yes, sir.
pretty good deal, that there.
damn good deal. I'm gonna tell Helen to go down there and start cooking.
I don't think that's the reason we put that kitchen in there. I was all for putting the kitchen in there, but I wanted to put the kitchen in there for the individuals who rent the Armory, get the kitchen.
Which they will.
And if we needed the
did.
kitchen,
I think we did discuss
and
having
if
the
we needed the kitchen,
kitchen
during
could be
an
separate
emergency, we would have the kitchen, which I know we can still do that. But if we give it to somebody by the month, and they go in there and use that kitchen every day, that kitchen ain't gonna last long,
They only get up to 15 hours,
huh?
15 hours a week, right?
Right. And again, we're not going to sign a long-term lease agreement with anyone. I think we did just want to kind of test the waters with this. So we weren't going to open it up to just anybody. But this would be a way to utilize that kitchen and also generate a little bit of revenue off of that equipment.
We'll go up to $1,000, and then you'll be making a little money.
Yeah.
But you're not gonna make any money at that,
Well,
what you charge.
the flexibility that I think we need on this, it's a good idea. But suppose you have 5 or 6 vendors at the flea market who want to use that place like once a week or whatever. And if you've got somebody that's leasing it or renting it for the whole month for $400, when are they gonna get a chance to use it? If they, if somebody says, I want to rent it because I do these, I sell stuff on the weekend. You charge them $100 or $200 one time, and they sell their goods. You rent somebody for $400 for a whole month, 30 days, I think. If that person got it for the whole month and nobody else can use that kitchen, is that what it is?
I think Amy said that there might be room for several more at 15 hours a month, But I'm surprised that that would be a market rate of less than $10 an hour. I would have thought it would be substantially more than that.
Well, I just want it to be where the more people that use it and pay a fee or whatever, we're helping their business, those people grow their business, but we also getting enough revenue to make it worth the town's while to rent it.
My hearing people was like an hourly fee.
Well, something.
I think something like that, Bob, but I mean, look, I don't have heartburn over this for sure, but I mean, 15 hours a week means that Monday through Friday, this lady can walk in and use the kitchen for 3 hours a day, anytime she wants to, if it's not used for something else. How does that allow the second person?
Yeah, that's my
to,
point.
to
I
come
don't
there?
wanna
I mean,
exclude
if
anybody
she's gonna
else.
use it from 9 to 12, Monday through Friday, and you've got a deal, I think everybody understands what's going on.
And I think we could establish a schedule with her being the only one, kind of us testing it. I don't think it's as important,
It's
but
easier
if,
to have a schedule going into the agreement than it is to try to
yes.
negotiate one after the fact.
Although you
Yeah,
see
and we
this
and we
as a
certainly
short-term deal.
can try, pin her down to a very specific schedule if we would like.
I think that would be helpful, and I realize you're talking about like a trial basis, short term.
Sure.
So we wouldn't be locked in or anything, but I don't think we're looking to have this person be the exclusive user of the commercial kitchen. So, if again, I mean, I don't want us to price, if we're gonna do it, I don't want us to price ourselves out of the market, but it just sounds like an incredible deal, man. If she's getting that kind of deal, it seems like we could pin her down to specific hours to allow us to maybe do some trial bases with some other people.
And I think, I mean, maybe more important to me is what the mayor said. How much did we spend to put that kitchen in? 30 grand?
It was more than that. I'd have to go back. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was
And so
significantly more.
if we put ourselves in to, and initially, I'm thought what he did is if you rent the facility, the kitchen comes with it. If the town needs it for emergencies and other things for cooking, that we use it. If this becomes a commercial kitchen for rent, I'm thinking we're going to be spent at $400 a month. It's going to take a lot of $400 to buy a $40,000 kitchen. It's going to wear out in X amount of time faster. I mean, those are just observations. I gave no suggestion as to what we ought to
Yeah,
do.
what seems more feasible to me is to rent it by the hour. So if someone has a small business, and they're cooking food, you rent it at $50
Come in and
an
book
hour for
time.
4 hours, that's $200. So if somebody else wants to rent the next 4 hours, that's another $200. Somebody else wants to rent the next 4 hours, that's another $200.
I don't know if anybody will pay $50 an hour for it, but I like that idea better. And again, if nobody's willing to pay more than $10 an hour or $8 an hour, whatever it comes out to, maybe
choose
this
not
is
to rent
not something we ought to be doing in the long term. I'm all for giving a trial for 30 days, 60 days, whatever, but I like the idea of you book it. If you need the commercial kitchen as a vendor at our farmer's market or some other small business person or fledgling incubated business needs it, wants it, then you just book a block of hours and you pay by the hour for it. And I would hope that it would be, the market would allow it to be more.
I mean,
I can
if you
research what
break
the
it
hourly
down
fee.
I think what Councilman McIntosh is saying, I mean, renting a full-scale commercial kitchen for $6.33 an hour. Does that sound like a fantastic deal or like they're getting screwed?
Well, the main thing
I think
is,
they're getting a hell of a deal. I don't even know if it pays for the cost of running the kitchen for an hour.
The main thing to me is to make it available to as many
That's what I don't
small
think.
businesses as
I
possible.
think it's a
And
loser.
the way you do that, they lease for a block of hours, 4 hours, 3 hours, whatever. And they pay a fee per hour. Now, whether you want that to be $50 or $25, that's for us to decide. But I would like, I don't want to see one person just lease the place for like a month, like the recent plot. I would like to see it available to as many
You
people.
can't cook nothing. You can't hardly get a pot of water boiling in an hour.
All right, I think we.
Yeah, I can go, I
have
can
a
go
broad-
back.
I have a broad
Yeah.
question, not in the micro level, but a broad question. The fee increases.
Yes.
How much additional revenue are you projecting with these increases? And I'm guessing these were not included on the budget estimate. Those are based on historical numbers, correct, Ms. Rhonda?
Yes, I can get that number to you. I'd have to go back and I'll have to pull some numbers, but I can get that number for you.
But it sounds like some of these fees may need to be increased potentially from the recommendation. So I guess this is going back to your committee. Yes.
Well, a better question is, since the Rollins Edwards Center has been opened in the last 12 months, how has the fees met our needs as far as paying employees, the part-time employees that work there and that sort of thing, and the maintenance to keep up with the building? Do you have any feel for that, Andy?
For in 2021, the Rollins Edwards Community Center generated $169,226. But that does include rental fees, programs, open gym memberships. That's everything. I can break that down. I don't have those numbers with me. But that facility generated basically $170,000 in 2021.
But for pure rental.
I'd have to pull a different report. I don't have that report with me.
I mean, I guess the only bigger level that I think Bob just mentioned is we need to know what our citizenry that are running businesses are renting their facilities for.
Okay.
And if we're undercutting that, we're doing a disservice to our community, in my opinion.
Understood.
Why don't y'all get back together guys, as a committee and study that a little bit rather than us go around the table trying to confuse Amy on what she's already tried to work out. And then in the end, what she's got worked out might be the best deal.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, because last time it was lower the fees, and now it's raised the fees.
Yeah,
And you know how Amy likes to spend money.
Yeah, do that. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you finishing?
Yes,
Okay.
unless y'all have any additional questions.
She's like,
"Get out of here, you're gonna
Get out
go
of
to my house again."
I'm tired of having this mic.
Amy said I was going at night, but it wasn't last night.
Mayor, next we have,
Terry, you were in sales. You know there's a time when you just shut up.
schedule of stormwater fees.
This won't take as long. Talk to the right fees.
Have a kitchen in there.
The kitchen.
All right, you'll be fine.
So we, right now, we currently have stormwater plan review fees, stormwater inspection fees. And we essentially like to double those fees to match what Dorchester County is currently charging. For residential over an acre, it's $100 per disturbed acre. For subdivision, it's $100 per disturbed acre. We go to $200 per disturbd acre. We'd also like to tack on re-review fees. I mean, a lot of these subdivisions and apartment complexes and commercial properties will have to review and submit comments more than one time. They hardly ever get it right the first time. So that's what's being proposed right now is basically doubling our review fees, adding re-review fees, and also increasing our construction inspection fees. And this would basically match what Dorchester County is charging currently. And this year, I think so far, last project, the last numbers I saw, these fees have generated $85,000 up to last month. And these fees have increased by 1.5 to 1.2 over the past 4 or 5 years. Just because the amount of work that's coming in, the amount of development that's going on. Any questions?
Yeah, Russ, what do you, review of application? It's $300 no matter what.
Which one are you looking at?
For a
variance?
of application for variance, as
Yeah.
they come back.
As they come back,
That's
right?
Come back.
Yeah, they get. Do we do anything here?
No, if there are no other questions, we'll move on.
I think
And I will tell you what the plan is for us moving forward. Typically, we've sort of, as these fees are changed or we're adding new fees, we're kind of looking at it throughout the year. What we'd like to do moving forward is with our budget ordinance, have all of these fee schedules attached as A, B, C, and D. That way, every year, we're looking at the fees, but also if there are changes to the fees or we're adding a fee, because that is required to have a public hearing. When we have the public hearing for the budget as a whole, it kind of covers everything. So that's what we'll plan to do.
Okay.
If you're good with this, we'll plan to have this as a schedule.
So you
on the
just
budget.
update as need be.
Yes, sir. Okay, next, Mayor. Oh, is that Jesse?
Yeah, it's me.
Okay.
I know some of y'all may remember in 2019, I proposed some changes to our fee schedule because of the adoption of the UDO. One, we created some additional permits and two, our fee schedule hadn't been updated in quite a while. Some of those changes got approved, some did not. So what I have here is I've highlighted in yellow the fees that I'm proposing to change. A lot of these are ones I included in that original request back in 2019. The first is home occupation. This is where, you know, someone who lives somewhere is running a business out of their home, which we do allow if they meet certain conditions. This past year in 2021, we received 165 applications for home occupations. And currently we have no charge whatsoever for those. As you can imagine, 165 applications, making sure everybody's meeting the conditions and all that takes a good bit of administrative time to review. And so I'm only proposing a $10 fee. I could certainly go up on that. I was trying to start slow, but I can tell you some of the areas around us charge $50 to $100 for a home occupation permit. So it's essentially a conditional use permit, which our other conditional use permits, the short-term rental is $100. Wireless communication, telecommunication tower is also $100. So $10 is very much on the low end, no charges on the very low end. So that's that one just kind of makes sense to me. But temporary use permits, we also currently have no charge for those. I'm proposing $25. The reason for that is that appears to be what pretty much everybody charges. There are some that charge more, but the majority of jurisdictions appear to charge about $25 for a temporary use permit. Honestly, most of those that we review for those are either Flowertown Festival ones for folks who are having vendors on their residential property for the Flowertown Festival, or we do require a temporary use permit for pods.
And then the other temporary use permits we generally receive are either for Christmas trees and or for fireworks stands.
For
So,
a pod, like go in front of your house,
correct. Yes.
what would a pod cost for 2 weeks under this?
It's just a one-time temporary use,
How much?
$25, just to,
Just to give us a sense of reference here, my son lives on Daniel Island. He's put a pod out there for 3 weeks, $600. And that's for the time frame that he's using.
yeah, we allow 30 days for a pod. And again, I'm just proposing $25.
No, I'm not
for that.
criticizing us.
Currently, we
I'm more
charge,
along the lines
again,
of,
currently we charge.
we don't
nothing.
have commercial business here. I see what North Charleston was charging for these things. And that would be, if they can do it with commercial business that they have for a tax base that we don't have, and we're not mirroring what they're doing for fees, shame on us.
And again, I went on the low end of
I'm-
these just because last time I got kind of.
Praising you.
So, the next one is, our tree permit for just the protected trees, not grand trees. It's currently $5, for a tree permit application. That's, you can put one tree on that tree permit application, or you can put 500 trees on that tree permit application, and it's still $5. Currently. So what I'm proposing is just one, to double the fee to $10 per application. And then if you have over 10 trees, to do an additional $2 per tree for each tree over 10 trees. That's similar to some surrounding jurisdictions that base it on number of trees. If you go over a certain amount, it's I can tell you it's a lot cheaper than I believe North Charleston charges $25 for a tree permit application. I believe Charleston charges like $100. So I mean, there's it's certainly not, again, it's on the low end, but and I can tell you last year we had 807 tree removal permit applications. So while planning fees are never going to make a significant amount of money, you know, if you double it, you're at least increasing it somewhat, and trying to at least somewhat manage those costs of dealing with the administration of those. The next one is under design review. We do have fees for our design review board. We currently have no fees for our Board of Architectural Review, which is for the historic district. It's a very, I'm using the same scale that we use for our design review board, but I'm cutting the fees in half because most of our BAR is residents, not commercial businesses. And generally you charge commercial businesses more than you charge residents. So that's where that proposal comes from. Again, it's still a good bit cheaper than most review boards charge. The next one is the grand tree permit. We currently charge $25 for a grand. If it has to go to the tree protection board, all I'm adding on there again is a cost per tree if it's over 10 trees that are requested. Next one is for PUD. Currently, we charge only $100 for a major change. I am proposing to change that to $250, and the reason for that is because if you're making a major change to PUD, you're essentially rezoning what that property, because you're making a major change to what the PUD allows, and the PUD is the zoning for that property. And every other rezoning, we charge $250 for. So that was just really to make it the same as if it was a normally zoned property. And then the last one is adding a $250 charge to an amendment to a development agreement. Because we currently have no charge for an amendment. And honestly, that's really just to cover the cost of advertising. Because advertising costs have gone up as well. Any questions?
No.
No, I think you ought to charge $5 $10 a tree.
Well, I mean, for residents, I mean, most residents are asking for 1 to 2, you know, it's not a huge, but I mean, you do get people who are like, oh, I want to take out all the trees in my yard, and you're like, there's nothing wrong, you know. So
I think $5 is cheap for a tree permit.
it is, it's very cheap.
Sometimes you have to come out there once, because he'll come look, for yourself, and then he'll determine, this requires the whole committee. So then he's got to go into the second time with the whole committee. So that's 2 trips for him, plus a trip for the committee.
Yeah. Well, another thing is if you have, a significant number of trees, obviously it takes a lot longer to review that property than if you have 1 tree or 2 trees.
See any problem with raising that. I don't see any problem with raising any of them.
Me Okay.
Great. Maybe we're ready to move on. We've got building permits next.
I just want to point out that when I'm talking to you about a building permit, my department also does gas, electric, plumbing, mechanical. I'm not talking about those. What's fixing to discuss. I gave each one of you just a small packet that you probably don't have. It's in your additional, I laid them on your.
Yes, in your, Don.
This one
That
here.
I put them at your seats when y'all took a break. You guys, if you can go to the next to the last page, what I really want you to look at is not all my scribblings, but in the bottom corner, that date, it's 1997. We still use these rates. 2 ways permits are calculated. One's through contract amounts. So if somebody comes to me with a contract amount, I immediately go to my 1997 document and calculate the permit. For new construction, on the second sheet, you'll see the square footage. This is what was sent to us this year. We usually update this once a year. For new construction, it does go up, but it only gives me a valuation. That valuation, I then take and go back to my 1997 document and get the permit costs. I gave you an example of how a house is calculated in the same packet, roughly 2,500 square foot house with a 600 square foot garages and porches. And the 358,500, what you see at the bottom there, it just gives me a valuation that I'll then return back to my old chart to actually get the permit cost. Dorchester County adjusted these $30 in 2008. Nobody around us has ever adjusted them other than them that I'm aware of. I asked at a recent meeting of building officials. Maybe their taxes are great enough that they don't need to, but some of them looked, when I pointed out how old the document was, I think they may be in the future, but this is a possibility for revenue for us. And last year, we had 1,155 permits, contract only, that we were just calculated straight off of this 1997 rate sheet. What I've proposed is in 3 of the 4 categories to go up $50, and in the first category to go up $35. I think that would mean somewhere between, if we do both, it's probably going to mean $80,000 to $100,000 additional revenue.
Go forth and do good. Thanks. Agreed.
You leaving the other permits alone, like the plumbing permit.
I'm not doing anything with those. Those were adjusted, I believe, about 2 years ago. But just the building permit has been really adjusted since 25 years.
Now, what else is added on to the building?
Well, we put the impact fees on there just because we're the last people to see it. So we, residential is just plug in a number. We do have to do some calculations for commercial. Because some of the square footage, this hospital addition, its number of beds. We do have to do some calculations for that.
Note it, but like planning department doesn't charge any.
And
We
department
review
doesn't.
all the permits that they do, they charge administrative fees, we don't charge any, most of the jurisdictions around us do.
You all don't have anything for building permits.
No, we have not, we don't charge any administrative fees for any of the reviews that just staff does. So that's another thing we could look at, but again, I was trying to take it a little slow.
Baby steps.
We
know.
Leave-
She said,
leave something
trying
for
to
next
take it a
week.
little slow.
Because you can't take it slow right now. And I'm a builder, but remember, I'm an independent builder. I don't mind just socking it to them track bills. I'll tell them that.
But as
You can take that
Russ
part
pointed
out.
out, and I'm sure Don can tell you, most of the time, we're not just reviewing it once. We're reviewing it probably 3 or 4 times.
Oh, I know y'all
And a lot of
strict.
times, the things we're pointing out are things that they basically wanted to see if we would notice. Are they gonna notice that? we want this out?
I'll tell you what else is strict. Dale. Oh, mercy, he don't quit.
Well, I mean, he's got a checklist.
Mhm.
As long as everything he's on his checklist is on
I
there.
know it, he goes
he's
by
good,
it
but
too.
You'd be surprised at how many times he has to send them the checklist that says, oh, look, you forgotten 10 things on my checklist.
Yeah, I like old Dale.
Mr. Mayor, the next thing on the agenda are discussion of employee performance reviews and benefits. But before we jump into that, here's because we are sort of shifting out of budget discussion. Is there any direction from council that you want Dan and Rhonda and I to go back to the drawing table, to tweak, to discuss, to bring back any further information or anything you need us to work on?
Well, for me, I think just to get an agreement, we want Amy to look at doing that by the hour and maybe raising a few of the other fees. And would like Jesse to add some fees for reviewing, because I mean, if you do it once and you have to review it 4 times, there's more cost in the reviews than there is. And would like her to add that in. And maybe adjust some of these other things upward a little bit. I just wanted to get council agreement because we all talked, but we didn't agree.
We ain't got nowhere to go but up.
Well, I know this is difficult to quantify, but is there an easy way to quantify the new fees into the budget? I'm not sure it's even appreciable in comparison to 43.
No.
Or 41, whatever. Nowhere close. We're talking a couple 100,000.
For me, if I look at what our employees are paid and how long it takes them to do these, we're losing, even with the fees.
Certainly a service. Public service.
You know, I don't know what Lisa and Rhonda can come up with before they want us to do before it gets too close to seeing anything. But we got to come, you know, we may have to raise taxes. Or we won't get bills voted. But maybe we can get full votes to come up with some money. A couple of things I think that we need to do is, one, get our lower employees up to $15 an hour where they can at least make as much as the guy flipping hamburgers at McDonald's.
They making more than that. They making more than that.
Right?
Yeah. But I agree with 15.
I mean, and then his mind said, you know, he's got a guy at 15. And then he's got a brand new guy at 15. And this other guy's been with him for 3 or 4 years, and he's already at 15. You know, that makes him feel bad. So, you know, how do we raise him a little bit and make him feel better? You know, it's a bad situation. It's not that we ain't been in this situation before, because we have. We've been in this situation when I was 5 chief, same place, I mean, no different. Because we, and Lisa knows too, I mean, I worked with her when, you know, I was employed at the town. You know, you let this thing catch up with you because you don't do what you recommend you to do. And we've had money and hadn't done what we should have done. We've had $18,000 in the reserve fund, and haven't done what we should have done because the borough was not knocking it, because we love him, but tight. And we had a real small group of people back then compared to what we got now, and he wouldn't do what he should have done. And that was got the salary structure strength in place. Even though Jack wanted to do it so bad, but you know, he wouldn't buckle. And so, you know, all that's history, but still here we are again in the same place with no money. You know, so it puts us in a hell of a situation. I mean, we got people, directors and department heads needing things. I mean, not wanting things, but needing things. It's like Doug said, and I know what he's talking about because I was public safety director in the police department. Same thing happened. You've got 20 cars, but you ain't got them. And you don't get them and you ask them for 20 more, next time you will need 40. They don't go away. I mean, he's telling us the truth. I mean, everybody we heard from today is telling the absolute truth. And so, you know, put our thinking caps on and see what we can come up to. But I know it's deep down us up to Lisa and Rhonda, you know, and all they can do is recommend something to us tomorrow because it's up to us to find the revenue. I mean, the department heads can go around this table today and come up with a little bit of money, you know, a little rental on this, a little bit of revenue on that, a little bit of revenue on this. When it all boils down, it ain't gonna amount to $500,000. So we get in tomorrow, that's something we're gonna have to talk about.
Well, in line with that, Mr. Mayor, obviously, I'm a novice. But if the budget's tight, you have to come up with a strategy to increase your revenue. And what I've heard from our staff, which is probably very, very frustrating from them, is that we have pulled them in different directions multiple times in a given quarter to where they work furiously to meet a request that we've given them. They present the request and we act like it's exactly the wrong thing that they should have done, even though they did exactly what we asked them to do. And I'm kind of giving that as a bad example, but for us to increase our revenue, we need to be thinking about a multi-pronged approach, whether that's an annexation strategy, whether that's a business development strategy, combined with a potential increase or some other fee, temporary fee. But we need to be thinking of what pieces need to be reviewed by us as a strategy to deploy to solve the revenue problem. The growth is happening, whether it's in the town or not. That strains our services and our infrastructure. So with that strain, we need to respond in a strategic approach so that I believe you said there was 35 vacancies presently that could be businesses generating income at our last council meeting?
Yeah, 25 to 30.
Okay. So there are certain things maybe we can do to help move the needle in a positive direction. So we're gaining revenue over our expenditures. So just my thought, if you have any ideas of a multi-pronged approach to do that, And all of us have that responsibility, like you said. Our job is to get the money so that our good staff, our excellent staff can do their jobs and serve our constituents with continued excellence like they have been doing. So I'm in support of thinking strategically and not taking anything off the table, but having options that we can deploy, put our efforts behind.
And I think one of the keys is what you said. We can't look at our population increase. We have to look at the whole area. And
No question, the 250,000 people, you know, that Doug's talking about. I mean, that's who he's protecting. You know, that's who Richard's protecting. It's not 53,000 or 54,000 for some departments. But also, I gotta say something that Bill said earlier when we got started this morning. Every department, and you ought to start tomorrow. Start when you're here, but start when you can. Look at your department. From the lowest person, if you're looking at personnel, from the lowest person in the department to the person that works right underneath you. And if you don't need them and they're not doing a good job, you need to think about letting them go. Because personnel is the most expensive person that you've got in your department. And it's reoccurring, and it costs the town more than anything. And I hate to say that, but, you know, it's got to be slack. It's got to be slack when you look at this town with 400 plus employees. It's got to be slack somewhere. And everybody's got to be honest with themselves. Every director, every department head's got to be honest with somebody. Everybody's gonna say, oh, I don't have enough personnel. What about the guy that sits riding around the pickup truck and ain't doing much? I followed a pickup truck the other day. I don't know what department it was, but I couldn't read the sticker. Hell, I followed him around for about 20 minutes. He wasn't doing nothing. You know, but you got to be honest with yourself, and you got to know what's going on. You got to check these people out. But if we've got dead weight, we need to get rid of them. Because that's costing us a ton of money, and it's keeping you from getting the very things that you need. But keep an eye on that. And other things in your department that you don't need. You know, there might have been a want one time, but they're sitting on a desk and they're not doing anything. You know, or they're sitting somewhere else and they're not doing anything. Get rid of them. Don't keep it there. You know, it's costing money, but get rid of it. And that's all I'm gonna say. And other than that, I thank you for coming. I thank you for pouring your heart out. I thank you for all the work you did, all the numbers you come up with. I know it's tough sitting there because I've been there. All of you work hard to do what you've done and put together today. And I guarantee you, we all taking it serious. And we want to get you the stuff you need. Doug, I know what you're talking about. And public safety, we want to get you all the things you need, especially in law enforcement. You got to keep this town safe. 50-something thousand plus them other 200. You know, it's tough to do, and things you said you needed. Some of it's unbelievable what you can find out with those cameras. That impressed me more than anything. You know, and maybe we can look at the American Rescue money and try to get some of this stuff. But revenue and waste. If you pick up some of the money just by wasting your departments, and then revenue, like Russ just said, we can work that out and gain some money. We can make some of this stuff happen. So thanks y'all for coming, and I hope to see you in the morning.
Yeah, I just to add to what you said, Mayor, that person that's not working, we're paying double, because not only are we losing that money, but somebody else is working twice as hard and getting frustrated.
Exactly.
So it's a double loss. And as to what Russ said, I think all the department heads here have cut something somewhere. So everybody definitely came in pretty much with a minimum. I know they always buffer it for what we're gonna cut out. But
Everybody was trying to help Lisa.
and to the point that people came in with low numbers because we've been beating on them because we won't charge anything. And now they get beat on because they're not charging enough.
Well, fair is fair.
You're not gonna win. We have the microphone.
Yeah, boy, they should have worked with Berlin Myers. I'm easy. He wasn't easy worth a tooth, I can tell you that.
Oh, you don't spend a nickel.
Let me tell you what he used to say. Somebody would say, well, we want a 3% raise. He said, well, I want to ask you something. Are you gonna do 3% more work? I said, he was dead serious. He meant that. I used to turn my head, I wouldn't even look at him, He was tough now. Anyway.
I'd like to just say this. I think that all of our department heads, division heads came to us with either very realistic numbers, given where we are budgetarily, or came to us with numbers that we needed to see. Whether it's realistic for this year or not, we still needed to see it. And I appreciate that. I've felt in the past like folks have come to us with just a wish list and that not as much just, see what they'll fund, throw it up against the wall, see what sticks. And I didn't feel that, I've not felt that way at all about what I've heard today. Unfortunately, some of the numbers that we needed to see, I don't see any way that they're going to be funded in this budget. But I'd like for there to be some process going forward. And Rhonda and I've talked about it, that we don't start over with each budget year with new requests, that we try, obviously we can only vote on one annual budget at a time, but that we try to implement things over a multi-year period. And we can't bind future councils, but on the other hand, next year, unless somebody resigns, next year budget will be the same 7 of us. So, the idea that we don't just start all over each year with new requests, but that if there are things that we don't fund, but we wanted to fund, or we partially fund, that we have the planning and the foresight to continue working towards implementing them. So, I commend you for what you brought us. I'm gonna go on my anti-tax screen now for a second. I agree with what Mayor Waring said towards the end of what he said, which is this. It's unavoidable that there are things in all of your budgets that can go. They got approved over the last 10 years, 15 years. At the time, they seemed like the right thing to do. Whether they're programs that just didn't accomplish what we thought, maybe they're people that aren't accomplishing what we thought, but it's impossible for me to believe that each year we've been approving increase over increase over increase, and that all of it has worked out as intended. Life just doesn't work that way. So, I would, as much as I think all of us and all of you have done a good job identifying future needs or very strong wants that I'd like to see us fund. There's nothing I heard today that I wouldn't like to see funded over the next 3 years somehow, some way. But I assure you that there are things that we're paying for now that we don't need in every single department. It would be impossible for that not to be the case. Over from 2015 to 2020, we increased the size of our government by 47%. We were budgetarily, it was easy. We were cutting millage, but revenues were going up. Property tax revenues were exceeding
the previous year, despite the tax rates going down, our surplus was going up every year. It was easy decisions to grant as many budget requests as we possibly can. There's nothing easy about this year's budget. I just wouldn't want anybody to get discouraged by, or think that we don't appreciate what you come to us with. But the reality is, I mean, we're going to continue, and this may not be, this is not the forum for it. The wheels came off the track. They came off the track bad in the last couple of years. We really, I mean, I think Rhonda has done a phenomenal job, and I have a lot of confidence in her projections for what the audit will look like, and hopefully it'll be some pretty good news. The last audit was terrible news for the town. And so we've got to be conservative in our budgeting. And I think the last thing I would say that I do really appreciate about Rhonda joining us is that I think these property tax and other revenue projections are what they need to be and what they've always been or had always been until a couple of years ago, which were very conservative projections. And that's, we budgeted based on very conservative projections. And that's partially why, Mr. Mayor, we were able to cut tax rates and still have revenues come beyond what we had budgeted for, increasing our surplus. Somehow or another, we got away from conservative revenue projections. And I think going back to it is exactly what we should do, but it's going to make this year, hurt.
Rhonda first, and this is for all departments head. I think y'all did a great job, but Rhonda by far, the best financial overview and look at our budget as I've had on any of the years I've been on council. And I think it lay a foundation for everybody else to work off of. You know, as we look at where we are, and I think it's, I don't disagree with anything Bill said as we look back and see where we are today, but how can any council and how can any department head or administrator or council member take coming out of 2 years of COVID and walking into the most inflationary time that we've had since 1980 and 81 and 82, facing what we're doing and not understand that well, we're going to be some mistakes along there because it was pretty hard to forecast a lot of that stuff. And what we're facing coming into this budget year is going to be one of the most, unless something miraculous happens, inflationary times. So I fully expect that the numbers that we're looking at from the cost side where we spend are going to be worse. So I think this is, despite what you did, Rhonda, and the rest of you, and looking at this conservatively, I don't know how you catch that inflation bus, man. It runs faster than you can project. So great job. I think we got, I think we're up to the challenge, but we've got some tough time ahead of us, and we're going to have to work through that tomorrow afternoon when we get together. Yeah. So you have one more thing?
Yeah.
Chris.
Hopefully just a brief discussion on employee performance reviews.
Yeah, I thought we were done, but that's Lisa's fault.
That's one of those once.
Yeah, I usually don't blame anything on her. And I'm not blaming this on her, my fault. Employee performance reviews, benefit programs, employee performance reviews, health insurance programs. I'll turn that over to Lisa.
Sir, and actually, we're gonna have Chris, microphone right?
All right, just very briefly, I know it's the end of the day, and it's been a long agenda, so I'm going to talk just a little about positives and negatives of implementing a performance improvement plan. At the end of that, I'm also going to wrap in the question of, do you tie it to compensation? But again, this will be very quick. As far as positives go, there is very much a school of thought that many employees want and have a right to have feedback on their performance and how they do their job and how they fit within their department and organization. And by being provided that, further that their performance, their motivation, their buy-in and commitment to the organization will be increased. And with that in mind, that then feeds to the department doing a more effective job of implementing its overall objectives. And that feeds to the overall organization, in this case, the town, being more effective as an organization overall. Additionally, it creates a documented history of performance for each individual, and then you have a collective volume for the entire department. It also allows you to identify training needs within the organization, which can be very important, and address negatives and issues with individuals before they become so acute that you have to terminate them. So that's on the positive side. Cons can be a poorly designed performance evaluation plan, or even a well-designed one that's implemented badly can actually do far more harm than good. And that's no small feat, designing one that does work well. So that's a critical piece. And if not handled properly, it can have a very negative impact on the organization. Additionally, managers and supervisors, a lot of them struggle with or uncomfortable with having those difficult conversations and providing truly candid feedback, especially when it's negative, face-to-face with an individual, that can be very difficult for them. Also, employees, many of them distrust such a process. Either they attribute it to their supervisor or manager is going to be biased against them, or that the feedback they're getting is not accurate and it's a random process and not based on things that are finite and definable. And finally, it can be extremely burdensome from an administrative standpoint, especially for the managers and supervisors. It can be dismissed or viewed even unconsciously as busy work or just another project or task that weighs them down with an already busy schedule. So that's those two components, or two sides of that view. Again, not wrapping compensation into that yet. I do just want to identify the things that are essential to a performance improvement plan and to the form and approach to such conversations. Absolutely, there needs to be a rating system for the primary responsibilities that they perform in their job. And along with that, those behavioral aspects of things. How do they get along and work effectively with their coworkers? Are they there on time? Are they missing time? Those kind of things. Those should not only have a rating or a relative rating, exceeds, meets, requires improvement, that sort of thing, but ideally also a scoring component in that. That allows you to total up a score and gives you a much more reliable employee-to-employee comparison when evaluating all your department's people. Another thing, in addition to there tends to be so much of a thought process of thinking in terms of and identifying things that the person is not doing right. It's essential in those performance evaluation conversations that positives, that achievements and objectives reached be acknowledged as well. There needs to be that positive side of it. And the negative things that are identified and talked about with the person need to be presented with tact. They need to be clear, not ducked or dodged, but they need to be approached with tact and in a constructive way, with the intent showing that you want to work with them to correct that and guide them on the proper path as far as performing properly in that regard. Finally, and it sort of fits in with some of the conversation earlier today about compensation and so forth, is the issue of tying in compensation if you do decide to implement such a plan. Pros to doing so, it gives you an organized system of implementing pay increases. It simplifies or streamlines that process and gives you a finite process of which to do that. It allows for the rewarding of better performers. That was talked about earlier with regard to the higher performers getting a higher percentage or being first in line for promotions and so forth. And it adds incentive for an employee to perform well. There are other things. Some employees have passion for their job. They want to strive, they want to learn and achieve new things, take on projects. But this is yet another component of that, which can feed the retention and so forth. Cons, ratings must be objective and consistently applied. If it's a poor system or it's not carried out properly or not consistently, then you run into problems with that. Systems have to be understandable and clear, the rating systems, how goals are set. The goals have to be achievable, measurable. If they're not, it just muddies the water. Compensation can also end up overshadowing other aspects and benefits of a performance improvement or performance evaluation plan. And then finally, it can also foster greed and resentment within an organization on the part of employees who feel things are being implemented unfairly, or someone's getting preferential treatment in the way they're rated and scored and so forth relative to themselves. So just two sides of that issue and various aspects of considerations to be taken into mind when trying to decide whether to implement such a.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Really just wanted to bring that to your attention as food for thought right now. I know this has been discussed a time or two in previous budget retreats, so it's really just for y'all to think about at this point. The final item that we have on the agenda, Mayor, is the health insurance program. And this, again, is just food for thought, some things for you to consider. Rhonda did mention to you the 6% increase that we have plugged into this budget. You know, that's a guess at this point. Obviously, when we do get those figures back, we will look at this mid-year and have to adjust either way, up or down, depending on what the actual number is. The other reason I wanted to bring this up is several of the department heads have brought up, since I've been back with the town, what a benefit a retiree health insurance program would be. Most of you who have been here for years know that at one time the town of Somerville did have a retiree health insurance program. It was done away with for a variety of reasons, but the main one, just that's financial reasons. It was just costing the town way too much money. Part of the reason for that, though, was because that retiree health insurance program covered the cost, the premium cost of the employee, of their spouse, in some instances, their families. So that obviously was a cost to the town, but also the retiree was allowed to stay on that policy forever and ever. There was no end date. So
Didn't have retirement either.
what's that?
It didn't have the retirement in it either.
Right. That's correct. So at any rate, at some years ago, the town decided to do away with that program. After some discussions with some of the department heads, you know, when we talk about retention, those are the things that kind of keep coming up. We also talk about some folks who have been here for years, who may be ready to retire, but have not taken that step because they don't have anything to fill that gap with their insurance. So we did contact our insurance agency. they did say that this is something that we can add on to our program. So what we just wanted you to consider is whether or not you would be willing to entertain that if the employee was to pay the entire cost of the premium. So in other words, it wouldn't cost the town anything other than, obviously, you may have an older population that would be on your program. So over time, it could cost or could increase the cost of the premium because of our older population. But if you think about that, we've got this older population staying on the program because they're not retired, because they don't have it, it's kind of evens out. So any new department heads who'd like to add anything?
I would.
Okay.
I've had police officers, have police officers, agencies, I'll go to Boeing, I'll go to particular places, Google, just so they can be tested for 10 years and then have insurance and have people quit and go to other agencies for that. I had somebody who's a rank officer, who's one of my best people, told me the other day, actually came from Chris, Tuesday, as far as he said, be a game changer. He said, that is what you're going to keep people in town with, is that they have the ability to have insurance. I've got one person who works for me, and they do a good job. They're only staying so that they can get their insurance in 2 years. It's a game changer, and I think we're tracking right where we need to be. I have an employee who just retired 2 weeks ago. He was with Charleston County Sheriff's Office for 23 years. He was vested in their system. He paid into that system through his insurance, and he was able to get insurance for him and his family for under $300 a month because he was vested in that system for over 20 years at Charleston County. So the town of Somerville didn't do that, obviously, but he left in the poor system, and he was able to do that. So I urge you all to please strongly consider that. It may be a no-brainer, maybe something more discussion. I'm sure I'm speaking for many people that have the same issue. I think you can see some people, they probably some dead weight around that retire on duty, leave. And that's good because it stagnates the entire process of employment. You have people that are retired on duty and show up for a check, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Dennis is paying like $1,600 a month for health insurance.
He retired from the town, he's in good standing with us, talking about his brother-in-law, who worked for us, did a tremendous job. And, he's up there in age, insurance, and he's 65. Hearing that's half of his retirement check per month.
Yeah, and I will say that part of what we discussed is once the retiree becomes eligible for Medicare, then they would fall off. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be a continuing.
And so the program that I have the pleasure of one of my first votes on council, staring at a lot of unhappy employees and former employees and vote to terminate, which we had to terminate that program. We had no choice. You think this is a bad budget? I mean, we had no choice but to get out of that program. And I don't even think I knew this. I just presumed that program terminated when the former retired employee became Medicare eligible. You're telling me? Wow.
Well, some people that retire.
Did prior to that.
Steve Lefty did. I remember he was one of the fire department. When he retired, because I retired when I was 52 years old, and then ran for council in 2 years. But those 2 years that I was retired, it cost me $12,000 a year for my medical insurance. But I had a building business, I was making good money, so it was paid. But I felt sorry for some of those guys that retired. But then the town, somebody on some of those guys retired, about 3 or 4 of them, they taught the town into picking up their medical insurance. So I went to the mayor and I said, second year, I went to the mayor and I said, how about pick mine up? He said, you missed out.
Timing is everything.
Yeah.
And I will add one thing, if I could, and I know some of Chris is looking at me, that there has been some discussion, you know, they could go out on the market and get it for cheaper than what they could pay to be on, continue to be on our insurance program. It very well may be the case in some situations, but I think just having that option gives some employees a comfort level that, okay, I can retire. I know I can get insurance, whether it's with the town or whether it's on the open market. I know I have that option.
I would think though, that, yeah, I think you're right. I think there are options on the open market that would be cheaper than paying your premiums here, but nowhere near the same quality. I mean, we provide extraordinary health insurance program to our employees, much better than the state system.
So Lisa, if the insurance company, Blue Cross Blue Shield, says it's something that they can do, and the benefit to the employee is that they know they have the option to stay on as if they were an employee, except they pay the full premium.
Correct.
Only for themselves or themselves and family?
Well, those are some questions that we would have to have answered, and that's a biggie. Is it for the employees only? And this is, you know, decisions for council to make. Is it for employee spouse, employee family? How far are we willing to let this go? Does the employee have to retire with the town of Somerville and how many years of service to make them eligible for this program? So those are the kinds of things, if you are willing to let us explore this a little bit further.
Well, yes, but the, you know, my question is, I can't, want to make sure I'm asking a couple of questions. One, I would want to know from the insurance company's perspective, Blue Cross Blue Shield, big company. We now decide to take on, for lack of better words, the older part of our employees who leave the town, retire, take another job, whatever happens. What is their experience as to how that impacts us? There's got to be a number that says I'm taking on these employees over. I'm not poo-pooing it. I'm just saying I think they ought to be able to say what we've seen where we've done this is rates have remained the same for the town employees who are working, or we've seen a 10% increase because they've kept these additional people on. That's a pretty big cost.
And that's
what I would expect.
That's the rub, man, because, you know, we're in this together. Both the town pays a portion, employees pay a portion. If they have a family, they pay a bigger portion. Yes, there's no direct cost to the town because the retirees are paying the premium, but you have more people on your plan, more older people, aging people on your plan. You're going to be rated differently, and it's not going to be less. And so, yes, I mean, the town will pay more eventually, and so will the working employees. The working employees, to some extent, will be subsidizing the health insurance.
They did it back, Bill, in, I don't know what year it was, I was on council. And we did it for the employees. The town's insurance company picked them up and gave them a way better rate than what they could go buy it for. And it didn't cost them a penny, you know, they didn't have to pay the town a penny. I mean, you know, for the insurance, but they could buy it through the town.
Right.
But most of them, it's not all of them, and I think, but it wasn't that many, you know. I don't think it's that many now. I think it was like 6 or 8, maybe 10, if it was that many. Most of them were firemen, policemen. And they weren't far from 62 years old either, you know. But they got they got it at a better rate that they could find it outside. So it saved them pretty good bit of money.
And so
And,
Chris,
And the insurance company paid for it.
if right now, what a man and his wife, a couple, let us say a couple. What?
Getting better. It's getting better.
Keep talking.
Yeah. What is the total monthly cost for two
For
people?
employee spouse.
I believe employee spouse, and I apologize, I don't remember
Right.
exactly, but it's roughly, I believe, $1,100. So between $850 and $1,100. I always forget.
A month.
between Employee a month, but total premium.
So I'm, as I look at that, I don't know how you cannot go out and beat the living hell out of that in the open market, because you can go to MetaShare for a husband, wife, and 4 children and do it for about $400 a month, $500 a month.
Under 62 years old?
Yeah, I'm talking under 62.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I'm positive. I got a guy, our music director at the church has got 3 children, he and his wife, and he pays $425 a month.
And I think that a lot of that
Is MetaShare.
dependent on income and, so that there's a lot of factors or variables that.
I'll tell you what,
play.
talk about it.
I mean, I think we ought to look at it.
Let Chris call the insurance company and ask them, because they'll probably be able to tell you over the phone whether they can still do that kind of stuff.
We can gather.
Yeah.
Also, don't forget, not only the, but I'll just say, and a couple of folks just identified it, but remember that their loss experience is part of our loss experience.
Right.
Whoever it is. So that will feed to determining rates. And I don't say that to say, so let's not do it. I would
Right.
just
Just a fact.
complete information.
Well,
Right.
when we, Chris said what I was trying to say.
When we discontinued it before, it was actually because there was 3 people who was almost 50% of our costs. They were real sick, they were elderly.
Well, and I will just say, I think the point I was trying to make was what you just said, but on the other side of that, we have this older population that if they're not retiring because they want to keep the town's insurance, they're still on our insurance.
I think you'll make them retire.
They're just,
And I know one of
Yeah, well,
the stipulations is.
but there's-
Retire under the retirement system. In other words, they'll have
Oh,
to have at least 30 years in it before they retire.
They're still on your insurance, but somebody's gonna replace them and somebody's gonna replace them. So I've still got that insurance cost. It might be a lower insurance cost, but now I've got the person that's gonna negatively impact what my rates are for the whole population.
So you.
I mean, it's a,
I didn't know.
I mean, I think we ought to look at it, but there are a lot more questions to be answered.
all right, Mayor, I think that's it for us today.
Mayor, you need a
gavel.
Sure, Bob, that was so good.
I'm all for exploring.
You know, I don't want to be wrong.
Very